pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don, your mic.
Roll call, please, Patty.
Carrie.
Here.
Deb.
Here.
Todd.
Here.
Ray.
Here.
Tom.
Here. Welcome guests, observers, friends, people with opinions on how life should be in Yankton, South Dakota. I'm glad you came to present your opinions. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
Maybe a brief note on the organized, unorganized township meeting we had a couple weeks ago. Just touch on that a bit.
Okay, we'll do that before we go into the Board of Adjustment.
You guys speak into the microphone, it's hard to hear.
That's what my wife says too. Is that better? Okay, I have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed the same. Motion carries. You have minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve them.
Move to accept June 20th minutes.
Ray? Second, anybody?
Second.
Todd? Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed the same, motion carries. Claims.
Send an email to Patty with a couple questions, very basic.
The one for the Kansas State Bank, that's the refresh.
Refresh of,
That's twice a year payment for 3 years.
That's a software.
The software.
okay,
for
software
everybody.
refresh.
Yep.
Okay, that's good. These
And
are,
the ambulance, that's a lease for 1 year. It's just they own the property and the ambulance, since the ambulance is on there. we have to
okay.
pay.
I asked about if there was a rental for BNSF Railroad, and thank you. That's the only questions I had.
Take a motion on that. I have a motion to approve the claims.
So moved.
Todd? Second?
Second.
Ray? Discussion?
Can you turn it up, please? We can't hear on the phone.
Thank you.
Is it back there?
It's in the back. I think Pat, you working on turning the volume up in the hallway?
I'm trying.
Okay. You got a vote on that, Don?
Yeah. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed the same. Motion carries. Payroll, June. Any questions or discussion? I hear a motion.
Make a motion to approve payroll.
Deb? Second?
Second.
Ray? Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed the same. Motion carries. Deb?
Yes, I attended the Transportation Improvement Program projects in the 3rd District meeting last week, and there's a couple that I'd just like to bring up that are going to happen in Yankton County next year. There's going to be some various pipe work along 46 and 50 in Yankton County. There's going to be some chip sealing done on 50, 46, 37. Highway 81 is going to have some routing and sealing done on it. Something that's more dear to us is the construction of the left and right turning lanes out towards the Napa Junction will be completed in fiscal year 2018, and they told me it'd be done before harvest next fall. Not this fall, but in 2018.
Great.
And on Highway 52, west of here, they're going to be doing the overlay of the concrete in 2018. And if anybody would like to go to the formal public meeting, it'll be held on July 12th, Mitchell, at the Ramada Inn at 7 p.m., if anybody would like to go to that. And I might mention that there were presentations given about our concerns on Highway 46 and when that was going to be addressed, and that is down the line, 2020, I believe, or 2021. And also on the Highway 81, there's a couple of sections up there that are kind of dangerous on the Utica Road, and that was also presented, and they're aware of those issues. And that's all I have. Any questions from anybody?
Good. The 12th
12th.
and all that, what's going to be done there?
They'll be talking, it's more of the public meeting, people could have come to this meeting, but this is a general public
Okay.
meeting where you can talk about the roads and know what's going on. And that's July 12th, 7 o'clock, Mitchell, Ramada Inn.
Thank you. Patty Davies? Hi Patty, would you state your name and
Sit down for me, will you, Ray? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patty Davies, and I'm here to give you a bit of a dissertation on attitudes for this CAFL that's coming up. I'm presenting you with a fresh bottle of water so that you do have a supply in the future after ours is ruined. Please hang on to them. You're going to need them. Our situation is on an aquifer. Please pass that over. It shows the watershed as you look at that map. All of these are jeopardizing our county water supply. Things leak, concrete pits, pipelines, oil tankers. All of them have a tendency to destroy our water supply. Nothing's foolproof. And somebody has got to look to this issue and the future of our area and the quality of our drinking water. Jay Cutz's number 3 application sits on sand and gravel in an area where first occurrence with an aquifer material is generally at land surface. The water table's right there for you to see if you drive down the road. There's willows and cattails. The water's just laying there. Many of the people in the area are totally dependent on their wells for survival. It's a given seepage will work its way down into the aquifer, causing all kinds of problems for up-and-coming generations. And let's not forget the watershed. 2 of these factories will be the most destructive because they're sitting within arm's reach of a floodplain. Jay Cutz's number 3 application is given, well, it's a given that twice a year there's going to be water running through there like a mini river. I live within a quarter mile of the location, and I've watched it happen in my home. The force of the water erodes away the soil. And honestly, the east end of that structure over a period of years is going to be eroded away and break off. With the heavy rains we have at least twice a year, and occasionally more, it's not a given if we'll have water runoff. It's just a matter of when. And that water will run all the way down through wetlands and properties that belong to the owners sitting here, onward to Clay Creek and into the Missouri River, the longest river in our country. All that distance carrying bizarre makes and models of all kinds of bacteria. Anybody in this room remember polio? What's coming is worse. When zoning in Yankton first started wiggling to the surface 18, 20 years ago, some people sitting in this room were involved in working out what they felt would be best for the county. Why now are these quality of life values out of date? Why is the water, the air, the health and well-being of everyone who lives in this area not being looked after as was the original objective of zoning? People will be here long after these factories have become abandoned eyesores because the water supply is contaminated. Once the water in the aquifer is polluted, how is the rural agriculture to survive? The human aspect may, with outside resources. But what of the rest of it? We must protect the water at all costs. Just because someone up the pecking order says it's okay to water down the rules doesn't mean you have to do it. You are allowed to maintain a degree of integrity and see that this blatant destruction over our water supply and the lives of well over 710 people. We were here to be the custodians of our good earth and its resources. Our area acreage is and always has been agriculture, not factory. We have done and are doing our time caring for the land and the water. Now it's your turn. Don't let this happen. Don't be pressured by your peers to destroy what we have. You have the right to say no, and I urge you, please, to do so. Thank you for your time.
Questions? Patty, would you stay for questions, please? Any questions? Maybe there won't be any. I thank you for your presentation.
Somebody had raised their hand back there. Did you have a question?
I've decided the best thing to do is not say anything.
Okay. Didn't want you to get left out.
Appreciate that very much.
Okay, next item. South Dakota Local Transportation Assistance Program.
Well, on behalf of the South Dakota Local Transportation Assistance Program in Brookings, I'm not here for discussion of what you folks are here for. We were asked months ago to take a look at the Yankton County's road system in general and give them a fair analysis of what we thought the needs and concerns were in Yankton County. So that is what I'm here for today. So I guess when this started, I had planned on probably speaking to commissioners and a few from the country, but it's good that you're here because I think you'll have a better understanding of your road system when we leave today before we came today. So with that, we're going to jump into a presentation. I see we do not have a mouse, but we did back in 2015, I worked extensively with South Dakota legislatures on putting together Senate Bill 1 to raise increased funding for local roads, not just Yankton, but the entire state. We did a survey of every county in South Dakota. We had 7 that didn't participate, all were West River. So this is a pretty good look at what we have here in the eastern part of the state. Overall, the pavement conditions, and this is Yankton County here, but if I overlaid this on another platform, it would almost clone what's going on in South Dakota. You take out the big 3, like Minnehaha, for example, Pennington, which are completely different animals, this is where the rest of you fall. There's a look at the paved conditions. You have about 9% excellent, 21% good, 32% fair, 19% are in poor condition, and 20% are in failing condition. I don't know how many of you seen the news the other night when they had a session on there just about the economy and the local roads across the nation. They're just as bad everywhere. Bridges are failing every day. We're in a bad place. I presented in Kingsbury County about 6 months ago. And the guy said, did you come here for just the gloom and the doom part of this? Or is there some hope? And I said, there's hope. But it's going to take everybody that's associated with this to help. This is not a one-person project here. We next looked at the gravel roads. Gravel roads are slightly better. They're easier to maintain. They're way less costly to maintain than paved roads. So you have more in the good range, more in the fair range, but we still have some failing. Yankton County's road system, they maintain 495 miles of roadway. 247 of it are gravel, 248 of it are an asphalt surface. Total budget, $3.78 million, which equates to about $7,637 per mile that they have to spend on your roadways. Total in Yankton County with the organized townships, 816 total miles. It's a lot of miles to maintain. If you notice, there's about 500 miles of county road system. There's almost 315 miles of township system. It's no different between county and township than it is between state and county. The state owns about 20% of the roads in South Dakota, but they carry about 80% of the traffic. So you look at the county level, your county carries about 80% of the traffic. It's about a wash with what the state does compared to the counties. We looked at counties of similar size, some neighborly, some not neighborly, but we tried to find something that had the same amount of miles, same amount of pavements. We looked at Turner County. If you look up there, they have 313 miles. That's 187 miles less than what Yankton has. They have 63 miles of that are gravel, but they're within 2 miles of the same amount of asphalt surface as Yankton County. Their total budget, $4.5 million. But look in the parentheses. They have $14,377 per mile for maintenance and construction of their system. Look back to Yankton County. We have $7,637, half. So if you wonder why your system is aging and failing, funding, a major shortfall. We're going to get into that a little further in. We looked at Brookings County, 388, again, 248 miles of pavement, almost identical to Yankton. Total budget, $6.2 million, $15,979 per mile, which is double. Clay County, 231 miles. They have less overall miles, they have less gravel, they have less asphalt. They have a $3.67 million budget, $15,887 per mile, double. So we just looked at funding by the roadway mile and I put it in a bar graph so everyone can see the disparity. Roadway miles, Yankton maintains by far the most miles out of its 3 nearest competitors. It's because they have a lot of unorganized townships. Unorganized townships become county secondary. They become the county responsibility. So if a township that's organized was to dissolve, they would become county secondary. And their funds would go to the county secondary road and bridge fund. We looked at revenues and expenses in Yankton County. There's peaks and there's valleys. You'll see back there in about 2010, 11, and 12, where we underspent our budget by about $500,000. I wasn't here then. I don't know why it was underspent by $500,000. But there's one thing I do know. For every dollar that we defer on pavement maintenance, It cost us $5 in rehabilitation. So in them years, when we were shortfalling maintenance by $500,000, that's costing us $2.5 million a year by not spending that money where it belongs. That was before Brian's time, before I believe all of this commission's time. I don't know the direction back then. I never looked at it then. But when we started deferring maintenance, that's when we start to fail. We talk about chip seals. Nobody likes them. We get the rocks on the road and they break our windows. It's the biggest maintenance item there is on pavement. That should be on a 5 to 6 year schedule. I looked at Yankton counties. The funding that's available, they're out on now some 9, 10, and 11 year cycles. So we're just going backwards terribly. We looked at transfers from the general fund to the road and bridge fund. I'm not sure where this balance came from. I know it's by how much money Yankton County has to apply toward the road and bridge fund. I was a superintendent for 20 years. We relied on almost a 50-50 match from property tax to fund the road and bridge department because we didn't have enough vehicles. We didn't have registration like Minnehaha County. Minnehaha County, for example, they put nothing out of general property tax into their road and bridge. They have enough vehicles and enough wheel tax to build their entire budget from that. We don't have that in Yankton County. Clay County, Turner County puts about $2.5 million a year, or $2.6 million a year, out of general property tax gets put into the road and bridge fund. That's $2 million a year more than we're transferring in Yankton County. And we're going to look at your shortfalls here in a minute. Here's the big concerns we have. The road system's deteriorating faster than the budget can cover rehabilitation. Yankton County got trapped years ago, just like Minnie. Asphalt was cheap. We paved, we overpaved. We paved roads back then that should have never been paved. They didn't have the traffic volumes. We didn't put enough base material underneath them. They were built for a maximum of 20-year life cycle. Well, guess what? We're at year 40 now from when a lot of these were built. They're at the end of their life cycle. So now what do we do with them? Do we rehabilitate all the pavements? We can't afford to. So now is going to come the tough decision of sitting down and developing a plan where we're maybe going to take some of them off the system. Some of them have got to go back to gravel because we can't afford to maintain them as a pavement. And if you live on a pavement road and you're going to lose it, I feel for you. I do. But it's part of life right now. There's people grinding roads all over. Asphalt surfaces, they don't have enough base strength. Back when these things were built in the 80s, if we had 150 bushel corn, we had a bumper. Now we're raising 250 bushel corn, 280 bushel corn over the same roads. Repetitive hauling, bigger trucks. They weren't designed for that. Gravel surfaces are cheaper and easier to maintain, but we have two things, loose material and dust. And that's what we have with gravel. The other thing is costs since 2007 have risen. Asphalt has come down considerably, but we looked at it over like a 14-year life cycle and it went up by 400% in 14 years. That's why we can't afford to maintain our asphalt. Just put a couple small examples in here of what it costs to do work. Township road, 20 foot wide. If you want to put 2 inches of surface gravel on that road, it costs you $12,540 a mile. 2 inches on a county road, $15,000. If you're doing some new construction on a gravel road and you need to place 5 inches, $40,000 a mile to put 5 inches of gravel on a 26-foot roadway. You look at a $3.5 million budget and you take out equipment, salaries, benefits, buildings, everything that goes into that, how many of them 40,000s do you have left to spend on a mile of road? It's pretty short. Hot mixed asphalt, 2-inch hot mixed asphalt to overlay, 24 foot wide, $121,000. So when you've got a failing 8-mile project out there that's pavement now, that's failing, and you've only got 4 or 5 inches of base material under it anyway, does it make sense to go out there and spend $160,000 to have it fail in 5 years? You either need to add base to it, build it up, make it strong, consider an alternative top. I know there's one right now. I've looked at it. I was here last fall. It was a grinding project up north. I think we sat down with some landowners. We had a good meeting, and I think they understood the situation and what they're going to receive, and I think they'll live with that. I hope they will. Water surface construction, that's when we go out and we turn a gravel or an oil road into gravel and we put a hard surface back on it. It might not be a 2-inch overlay. It might be a surface treatment that reduces dust, gives you a hard surface, but it's not the same as having a mat. But you look at that on a 24-foot road, which would be a nice county road for hard surface, we're at $70,000 a mile to convert that back to hard surface. Brown County, for example, I was up there and spoke at their meeting. The slogan they came up with is sometimes you have to upgrade to gravel. When the pavement gets so bad you can't drive on it, sometimes a gravel surface is better. We looked at the county secondary system. That would be the ones that are unorganized, unorganized townships, and maybe some of you live in them unorganized townships. The cost to maintain those unorganized townships far exceed the revenue being generated by the secondary road tax. Does everyone follow me with that? Taxes in unorganized townships get paid into a secondary road and bridge fund, and that money is supposed to be spent within the unorganized townships. The problem here is we're supplementing that with about $150,000 a year from the primary system to maintain the secondary system. So when I met with a group down here a couple weeks ago, I explained to them, if you're taking $150,000 off the primary system today, what are we actually doing? We're deferring $150,000 worth of maintenance on our primary system. That's $750,000 that we're costing ourselves every year we do this. So what do we do in the unorganized townships? And I know there's nice homes out there in them townships, but everyone else shouldn't be supplementing the unorganized. Other option, you decrease services to match the revenue stream. The other option is you opt out the unorganized townships and they pay for their services. You can't rob the big pot to pay for the small one. That small one's got to be self-sufficient. And that's in the bottom line there. We deferred $153,000 from work needed on the primary system. You do that for 5 years, now we're $3 million in the hole. So this is something that I've spoke with some of the commissioners on, and a task force here that's with the Township Association. They're working for, they're going to fix that. I know they are. Yankton County budget needs. Their 2017 budget, $3,793,000. Increase what we feel is needed to maintain the system, $1.6 million. There's their needs for 18. It's about a 42% increase from the study. And that includes some match money. There's some money out there for bridges and things where they have to match a percentage. That's all figured into that. Their current bridge needs in Yankton County, for the ones that are posted in Yankton County, is just short of $8 million. Bridge replacement costs average about $240,000 per bridge. Here's some options we have. Do nothing. Continue to see the deterioration of the overall system. The deferred maintenance, which costs us $5 for every dollar. We can increase funding, or we maintain a core system and reduce our asphalt mileage and lower the level of service. This is a guidance from the Federal Highway documents. Today's loadings require that you have a minimum of about an 8.5 to 11.5 inch supporting base under your pavements. The one they ground up here, I looked at the core numbers on that, we're somewhere between 4.5 and 6.5. We're about half the strength we need to be.
Is that 301?
Yes, 301. Then we put truck traffic in the mix. And I know when I go out and I talk about taking somebody's pavement away, the first thing I always hear is, oh, you can't believe the truck traffic on there. I said, that's good for me to know. Because that means if we got 15 trucks a day and you have a low strength subgrade, now we need to add 12 inches of base underneath a 5-inch mat. You're looking at about $300,000 a mile. So if we have 1.2 set aside to do our pavement maintenance, now we can reconstruct 4 miles in a year. We can't do that. We got to figure out a better system. Comparisons of a 2-inch overlay in 2004 at $38,000 to 2017 at about $100,000. 62% increase. Since 2004, the Yankton County budget has not increased 62%. Today's price for a 3-inch overlay is $145,000 a mile. So just going out and overlaying is not the answer to fixing your road problems. Here's what we have, folks. We're getting bigger and bigger. When you see, we're agricultural. I heard that just a few minutes ago. We got big tractors, 2 and 3, triples. A lot of tractors got triples on them. So when we're going down a 22-foot thin pavement and we need to pull off to the side to meet a vehicle, what happens to them outside 2 tires? They hang off the roadway. You can see daylight under them. So now we put that entire loading on one set of ribs on a tractor tire. That's about the second most destructive thing out there compared to a scraper. Here's how bad it gets when your roadways, when your pavements fail. That was a paved road in 2010. It was not a very good paved road. And when it rained and rained and rained, it went right through the pavement, saturated the subgrade. They had school buses stuck in there, they had semi-trucks in there. At that point, you're better off to have a good gravel road than to go through this. Recovery takes time. Is going back to gravel right for everything? No, absolutely not. We asked a whole bunch of counties. We looked at 3 different life cycles over 20 years. And that graph I know is going to be hard for you to read. I'll give you the simple number on there. If your traveled roadway is getting less than about 170 vehicles a day, cost effectiveness of having a hard surface is not there. To have that nice 2-inch mat that you want on your roadway, if we run a 20-year life cycle, you have to have 650 cars a day. I went back and gathered the numbers from Yankton County off the DOT traffic count. We have a lot of pavements in Yankton County that are in the 30s, 40s, and 50s a day. Them are the ones you got to consider turning back when they fail. "20-year life cycle costs. Over 20 years, gravel costs you about $103,000 a mile. A blotter surface, which is a hard base with just a thin mat on, or thin oversprayed of oil and rock, about $350,000. And if you want to go to hot mixed asphalt, that costs you about $575,000 over 20 years. So if you take those numbers and you do the math backwards, you'll see what it takes to maintain a system this size. Is that a good candidate to turn back to gravel? It's not worth an overlay, is it? It's failed. The problem with this one, gets about 2,500 cars a day. So with something like that, you're going to have to recycle that, figure out how to pay for it, and you're going to have to make it a hard surface. You couldn't maintain that as a gravel road. Impossible. Is this one a good one to turn back? And I know there's a lot of these in this area. I've driven them. Under 100 vehicles per day. Part of what we tell people all the time, don't always fall into that trap of the worst first. If you spend your money on the worst stuff first, your good stuff fails. Spend your money where it will do you the most good. And that's hard to read, and we could not get that out of the format that it was in, but it shows what pavement costs per mile. The one on the left is in poor condition, or in excellent condition. That only costs you about $800 a mile to maintain. Stuff that's in excellent. You get over to the stuff that's in fair condition, you're looking at almost $2,500 a mile. You got patching, seal coating, everything that goes along with that figured in. Then you get to the poor one, and people will say, well, why is a poor one less than a fair one to maintain? Because that's when you give up. That's when you start patching with gravel. Start throwing a little patch mix in here and there. I looked at Yankton County's expenditures last year for patching. $600,000 for patching. And I would bet if we went back and looked at that, it was to try to save some roads that probably shouldn't have been saved. The revenue stream, here's where you pay your property taxes, folks. It might be easier to see in this chart. 16% of your county taxes go to the highway department. So I want you to remember, if you're paying $500 worth of taxes, say $1,000 worth of taxes on a home, and you call the highway department and say, hey, you need to come out and fix this and do this because I paid $1,000 worth of property tax. 160 of that went to the highway department. You don't fix much for $160. But that is a general breakdown. We looked at it across the state. The nice thing, if you opt out for road and bridge, that number for road and bridge gets bigger because the rest of them don't get any portion of that. Now I'm going to give you just a little general of South Dakota in general so you know where you stack up as Yankton County. Here's bridges that are built by the decades. A bridge had about a 50 to 70 year life cycle back then, and look when all the bridges were built. 50s, 60s, and 70s. So not only is our pavements failing, guess what else is coming due at the same time? All of our structures. How many of you drive on a road that has a posted bridge on it? Probably half of you. If you're in the agricultural business, it would be nice not to have a posted bridge there that you had to go around every time. Your structure is owned by counties and cities in South Dakota. There's 3,176 bridges, 809 culvert structures, for a total of nearly 4,000. 1,191 of those are either obsolete or deficient. By functionally obsolete, they're either too narrow for today's equipment. Some of them may have been an old pony truss that have height restrictions. That's functionally obsolete. And the other part, deficient, is one that can't carry a legal load. Right now, there's 73 bridges that are closed in South Dakota on county and township roads, in hopes that someday they'll get to take them off that system. Here's an overall look at South Dakota. 1,084 structures need to be replaced. An average cost of $240,000. That's not really a 260 million, 1,600,000, but it should say 260 million.
160,000.
260 million, and our current bridge construction money for 2017 for South Dakota is about 15 million. That means we can replace 62 of them, 6% of them. And guess what's going to happen next year? We're going to have another 6% become deficient. We're never going to catch up. Senate Bill 1 was good. It helped the state. We asked for 300 million. We got 16. But that 16 we didn't have. So we were thankful that we got that. Industry needs roads and bridges. I'm not sure where the house was built, but unless they used something pretty light for wood, I'm sure they exceeded that 3 ton that bridge was posted. Agricultural needs bridges. I could show you a whole photo file of South Dakota bridges with farm equipment sitting in the bottom of the river or lake or creek. They're all over. This particular bridge was posted for 4 ton. We had a stack mover go over a bridge in Brookings County that was posted at 6 ton.
I got a question.
Yes,
Sorry to interrupt you, but did that farmer have to pay for that bridge?
he did.
Okay.
Same in Brookings County. 6 ton bridge, 86,000 pounds on a stack mover. Good for Yankton, or good for Brookings County. It was on the bridge replacement program. They could take that off and put a different one on there because that one got paid for. But we got to have infrastructure if we want to have business.
Just, maybe everybody here doesn't understand Senate Bill 1. Could you briefly just...
I could. Senate Bill 1 was put together by the County Association, Township Association, the Department of Transportation. It was done in 2015. We studied things to death to look at needs. I offered our, I offered our services to the County Association. I think I probably was in front of the House and Senate probably 6 times or more that year, presenting information like this. We showed the big need. And everybody always asks the question, where did all the fuel tax money go? Counties don't get fuel tax money, folks. That's how the state takes care of their system. So the state got about $88 million of fuel tax to put towards their system. We were a little short of that at 16 million. But Senate Bill 1 was license plate registrations, things like that all come in to fund your highway departments. Wheel tax comes in and funds your highway departments. That wheel tax gets dispersed out straight across the board. It's how many road miles you have. So Yankton County does pretty good in that because they have a lot of road miles. But they also have a lot more expense by having a lot of road miles. There are no easy solutions to this. And you're not the first group I've ever presented this to. Although I would say you're the largest group. Usually we get 15 or 20 concerned people that come into the commission meeting and say, hey, we want to know what's going on with the roads. But when they asked us to come and do this, they were going to put us on the agenda a little later. And then I asked kindly if we could maybe be earlier, because I didn't know how long the next session would last. But One final thought to consider. The information today that we're giving you is to simply maintain what you have. Don't think what I presented today and all of a sudden we're going to have interstate highways and everything else. That's not what this was about. This was to maintain the current system. If you're going to upgrade, that's above and beyond. Yes, sir.
So with what you're presenting, would you say that if we were to put more semi-loads onto the gravel roads and main roads we have around here now, it's just gonna tear them up even more?
It depends how much gravel you have on them, how much drainage you have. One thing about gravel, you can usually repair that. Once you blow an asphalt up, it's very costly to repair that. $11 a ton for gravel to repair a gravel blowout, $75 a ton for pavement.
So if our county doesn't have the money as it is, it makes it harder.
It does. It does. And your maintenance level is going to continue to be at the level it is now. And a lot of complete reconstruction isn't in the forecast here, folks.
So, just to be clear, increased semi-traffic on a paved, what is that, chip seal paved road that's already damaged, that's just gonna ruin it even further, means we don't have the money to take care of it already.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
And, yes.
I know you talked mainly about farm equipment, but how much does a semi-trailer nowadays weigh with quad axle and pulling a pup behind?
A lot more than a single axle semi. But I'll
That's what our roads were made for.
Right. But I'll address something really quickly there, because I'm going to run out of time. A lot of people say, well, the damn farmers, they got them 7-axle truck and trailers, they're hauling 96,000 pounds and they're killing our roads. An 18-wheel semi, legally loaded at 80,000 pounds, does 1.5 times the amount of damage as a 7-axle semi legally loaded. The more axles, what kills pavement is deflection. Pavements deflect when you drive over them. So when you put a series of axles together, like 4 axles really close together, that pavement deflects one time.
Except when it's turning.
Except when it's turning. Scrub radius is different than damage down the road. It is. Yes, sir.
What, I saw some figures in the paper that they were saying at Napa Junction, if this thing goes in up there, they would be looking at 400 or 500 semis a day. What kind of road do you need for that?
I would guess they'll probably have 15 inches, 18 inches of base, and they'll probably have doweled concrete, I would guess.
I didn't see that. How much does that cost?
The loan for that was, or the total amount was $6 million.
That's what the loan was?
That was what the total amount.
We didn't pay for that.
We didn't pay for that.
Yeah, they didn't. The county's not paying for that road. But yeah, if you could afford dowel concrete, you really take away some maintenance costs.
9 inches of concrete on the gravel base.
And certainly some of those would end up on the county highways after they leave that spot.
Right, but the same weight limit is enforceable anywhere.
So if we fed the grain locally, we could keep the heavily loaded trucks off the county system.
Still on the road.
Keep them off the road.
You mean instead of taking it to the elevator?
To Sioux City or to Hudson or Chancellor or to...
Well, hopefully what a good farmer or a good custodian of the road system would do, if you've got load after load after load, put them on the state system.
But you got to get to the state system.
You do.
So if we could feed the grain locally, we'd be staying off the county system and the state system.
You would. Well, you'd still be on the county and township system because you can't farm all your grain at your home place. Somehow you got to get it back there. What we're getting a lot of right now, anyway, I come from the middle part of the state where we farm twice a year on the road system. And what I mean by that is we harvest it in the fall, we haul it all home and put it in storage, And then the next spring, when the load limits come out, we haul it all back out. In the old days, you used to take it out of the field and you hauled it to the elevator. So we're almost double loading our harvest anymore from where we were. But that's what the farmers have to do to make money. I totally agree with having to do that. Yes?
That $6 million road, we didn't have to pay for it, but we got to maintain it now that it's in?
Yes.
But you're looking at doweled concrete, which doesn't need chip sealing, crack sealing, all them things that go with it. Probably your maintenance for quite a bit of that life cycle will maybe be some striping, things like that that are part of a state program that you're going to get a big reimbursement for. So you won't have a lot of indirect cost to maintain that concrete.
Greg, what's the life cycle
On that,
of the road out in Napa Junction? What's that life cycle?
I would say with that, I would say probably 30 years is what it's designed for. Maybe 40.
How thick is it cement?
9-inch.
Didn't you suggest 15-inch before?
15 inches of base underneath that material. And that's where pavements get so difficult. Asphalt, until you get to 5 inches thick on an asphalt road, that asphalt really has no strength. That is a ride quality.
So what do we have for a base underneath the 9 inches?
15 inches.
I believe it's 15 inches.
Well, I know that's what it's.
I can't tell you, but I can get that number for you if you want it.
Yeah, I'm not directly with that project, but
I know the 9 inches is accurate because I was out watching them measure it.
Mr. Vavra,
yes.
you were talking about the vitality of townships, how important they are. I serve on a township board. We're supposed to do annual inspections of these bridges.
That is correct.
I'm just a dirt farmer. How am I supposed to know when that costs money to have people come in and inspect bridges, and townships budgets don't come near what a county budget is. How do we go about finding monies or what have you for bridge inspections? Because it's obvious we need them.
Yeah, there is no bridge inspection money available at the township level because really townships do not have bridges. The things that look like bridges on the township system are defined as a culvert. Even if they're railings, the whole works, if they're less than 20 feet long, they're considered a culvert by statute. So you're responsible for anything over 20 feet in length, the highway department takes care of. They get inspected every 2 years. But in the township codified law, it states that the Township Board of Supervisors shall cause to be inspected their culvert system annually. That doesn't happen. If you're going to inspect one of those 20-foot structures and less that looks like a bridge, you have to have an engineer inspect that. There's not a township supervisor that can go out there and say, yeah, I think it's good. What do you think, Ray? That doesn't work. But it does. It costs money. By the time they look at hydraulics, fracture critical areas in that bridge, railing systems, everything that goes into a bridge, it costs you money to inspect them. But if I was on a township board and I had some of them that looked like bridges but weren't, I would get somebody to look at them, because if they need posted, I would get them posted before I had the liability of that sitting on my township desk. That's going to cost you way more than it costs for the inspection. Because I can't believe a lot of the townships have more than maybe 3 or 4 of them at tops.
We got a couple of them.
Yeah.
I'd entertain 1 or 2 more questions, and then we need to move on to the next.
Great.
Yes.
How many counties now are considering contracting out more services?
Counties contracting out more services.
Instead of having your own staff do the work, they cut the staff, and now they're starting to pursue contracting.
Some do.
Are you seeing more of it?
I'm seeing more of that in the really less populated counties. Like when you get out west, say midpoint west, There's some counties out there, I'll give you one particular I've been dealing with, have 678 miles of gravel road. 3 employees. And they have a mess on their hands. 678 miles of gravel and they have a $1.26 million budget. They can't afford to maintain their entire system twice in 1 year, and they gravel about 10 miles of that 678 a year. When we're talking chip sealing, it does not matter. If it's chip seal, gravel, they got to be on a maintenance cycle. Chip seal should be 5 to 6 years. That's very important. Yes?
She brought up what she brought up there. I noticed on the highway budget, I believe there's about 1.2 million in wages and compensation that way, and there's this 3.7 million total. Is that comparable, or is that seemed like a high number?
It's usually about 30%.
It's about 30%.
And I'll tell you why that happens. How many of you live in the country? I would say today a lot of you live in the country. We've become a group of people that feels somewhat entitled. I'll just put that right out there to you. You got 500 miles of road in Yankton County, and if you don't see that snowplow in a snowstorm by about 8 o'clock the next day, the phone rings. I lived that for 20 years. Haven't seen a snowplow yet today. Yeah, I know. We went to work at 5:30 and we got about 400 miles to take care of, and I'm sorry I haven't got to your place yet. But, well, I need to get to town. Yeah, so there's 400 other people out here who need to get to town too. But it takes time to plow snow. And that's what part of your staffing is. Them are the services that you want on demand, almost. That's part of what we live in today. And with social media, it's worse. Because if you think you get shortchanged one time, and you're having a bad day, you get on social media and what do? You share it with the world. Think about that next time. Think about when you got 500 miles to take care of, that you can't be at all 500 miles at one time. Yes, sir.
We're talking about gravel roads and dust and all that stuff.
Yes.
There is a treatment that you can put on the roads.
There is.
To suppress that. What kind of cost is that?
It's about $6,500 a mile. But it requires some things. Preparation time. It requires some good surface gravel to start with. And yeah, you do. You reduce a lot of your maintenance costs with that. But $6,500 a mile over a 5-year life cycle, you're looking at $32,500 to control that dust for 5 years.
Can I ask, how many miles does Yankton County dust suppression, how many do you think we do?
12 miles.
The last meeting it said 15.5 in the notes.
Well, that was...
It could be because of a detour route. I mean...
That was because of Napa Junction.
A lot of times you will, if you're doing a big construction project, you will treat some areas that are outside your normal.
On the road that goes to my house, so that all of you know, if you don't, probably you all do, there is 1 mile that's got that treatment on it. I almost travel the other way out all the time because I don't like it. And if it were up to me, I wouldn't put it on our road.
You said we're only dust controlling 12 miles, and we spent 100 and some thousand last year on the 12 miles?
Well, you have to figure, by the time you put a water truck out there and a maintainer out there to do all the shaping, and then you put rollers on it and everything that goes with it, your costs get up there to about $10,000 a mile.
Secondary roads that we spent that money on.
You're correct. We did address that. Last question right here.
They need to go.
No. Well, it's kind of 2 questions.
Oh, only one. Make it a good one.
All right. So, assuming that the material that you put on the road is calcium chloride, is that correct?
Or magnesium.
Okay, or magnesium. What kind of effect do those chemicals have on your vehicles?
If done right, they're pretty non-corrosive. We like to see it get incorporated into the material so it doesn't get on your vehicle, but the new chlorides that come out have a corrosion additive put right in it to reduce that corrosion to your vehicle.
I can tell you it's a mess every time it sprinkles.
It is. If you got gravel that's got high plasticity and it gets wet, it's going to get on your vehicle. With that, I will close as the local transportation program. If you have any questions for us, Andrew Peterson is with me. He's our field manager from Brookings. I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Greg Vavra. I manage the transportation program at Brookings. I'd like to thank you for having me down. It was fun to work with you guys in this project to bring some light to this. If you have any questions for us, feel free to catch up to us. We're going to stick around for a little bit. We'll give up our front row to someone else, but we will definitely stick around for a few minutes to take some questions. This is a free service to Yankton County. All of our program is free to the counties, cities, and townships. So if you see in the paper we're here for a meeting at night or whatever, don't feel like the county is spending your money unwisely, because we are paid through the local road and bridge fund. So in a way, all of you are already paying us to come here. So with that, thank you, and that'll be the end of our presentation.
Thank you very much, Greg.
One final comment. I believe Carla is going to post this presentation on their website at the Highway Department. So if you want to go back and look at some things on there, it'll be posted on their website. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray, did you want to?
Well, I was going to follow up. Our next town's organized township meeting is next Monday night at 7 o'clock here in the chamber. We are going to have Rob Clemish, the state's attorney, is going to be speaking with us, and a representative from the Towns and Townships Association. These meetings are open to the public, so please come in and listen to more discussion.
Anything else on that?
All set.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to move into the Board of Adjustments.
So moved.
Motion by Deb.
Second. Thank you.
Second. Any
Mr. Chair, could we please make a check on whether people in the hallway who are residents of Yankton County could fill in some seats, and some folks who are here who are not from Yankton County could give up their seats so that people from here could participate?
Let's just finish our motion first.
We'll finish the motion, then I'll hand it on.
Great.
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none.
Can everybody hear back there? I know I got a hearing aid, so I have trouble hearing up here sometimes.
Do I have a motion to move into the Board?
We have a
Okay.
motion on.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. We're in the Board of Adjustment. We've had a request for all of the people that are not from Yankton County. Is that right, ma'am?
Not from Yankton County, or not actual applicants, or people who are, say, lawyers for folks here in Yankton County.
Oh, that's not, no.
People who could give up their seats so that the people from Yankton County who are in the hallway can have a seat.
So we're talking to right now the people that are sitting here in the room. Are any of you from outside of Yankton County? If so, would you please exchange?
I am, sir, and I will do that.
Thank you.
Someone wants to take my place standing here, please do.
Two seats right here.
2 seats up front. Folks.
There's an extra chair right here.
We need to ask
Gary.
the gentleman to leave, because I got two sitting by me, I know that
I can't hear you.
we need to ask the gentlemen that are not from Yankton County to please leave.
That's your business.
So this is a public meeting for Yankton County.
It's public.
But we're not gonna ask other people to allow miles.
It's,
We did.
But it's not gonna be enforced.
There's still a chair left up here.
I don't have the, if they don't have the integrity to get up and leave, they don't have it. It was a request.
that chair needs to move.
No, you gotta
Nobody
be on-
says they have
Gotta be on
to.
the other side of the boat, of the table for sure.
No, it needs to.
That's the chair next to Rob.
No.
Okay, I'll read this as the process that will follow in these hearings. Number one, any individual who is interested in presenting regarding the application must sign a testimony sheet prior to the hearing for each specific application. Individuals not interested in testifying may acknowledge their position, pro or con, prior to the hearing on the sign-up sheet, which will be noted on the record. Speakers must be Yankton County residents or Yankton County landowners or their representative. 2, the applicant will be allowed 10 minutes to present the application. 3, comments to be allowed for a specific application, pro and con, will be limited to 1 hour. The amount of time allocated for the comments by each speaker will be determined by the number of speakers listed on the testimony sheet, i.e. 10 speakers, 6 minutes each. For each application, no repetition will be allowed, but will be noted on the record. 4, if any person is in attendance is being disruptive, the chairman of the Board of Adjustments may have the said individual removed from the meeting. And 5, I just hope that everybody can treat everybody else honorably. We all have different opinions, and we got to live with that. In addition to that, I will read as each speaker comes to the podium. I'll read this statement. In addition to what you wish to share with this board, do you have any evidence or information that would indicate this application would violate the Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved? So prepare your thoughts on that item so that you're ready when you come up, because that'll be the first question I'll ask. There are from 12 to 16, 15 or 16 people on each, for each applicant. So if you have 1 hour and there's 15 of you, that's 4 minutes per person. I would like for the individuals that are most closely located to the applicant's facility to be the first to speak. Then I'll call off the rest of the people as we go. Deb will time. Any questions about that process?
Mr. Chairman, can they still sign up to speak today, now?
I think it said until the thing started, and then it started.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if speakers provide comments, will those comments be considered as part of all 7 bonds or just whichever one they're talking about at that time?
I think if you choose to say we'd like this to apply to all 3 of Mr. Shank's applications, that'd be adequate to have it on. Is that okay, Pat? Yep. Makes sense. And if we get into the talking about manure stinking and everybody's bringing that up, we don't need to listen to that. We all know it stinks. Point it out. Once you've done that, move on. If somebody else in your group has brought that up, don't bring it up. Use your time to talk about issues that you feel strongly about, in addition to the smell. With that said, application number 1. Oops. I have skipped over Variance of Lonnie Lee. Let's do that quick.
Okay, I'll read it. Fine. Okay, so you're...
You thought you were going to have to wait until... I thought it was first.
Okay, so before you is the action or the Lonnie Lee's application in which the applicant has applied for a variance of minimum lot or minimum yard requirement. And the variance is to build an accessory structure 15 feet from the lot line versus 75 feet as requested. Said property is legally described as Lot 1 of Kayla's Addition, northwest quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 8, Township 94, Range 54. Hereinafter referred to as Vollen Township, County of Yankton, State of South Dakota. E911 address is 30416 447th Avenue, Vollen, South Dakota. You see in your findings that Lonnie had an existing structure on the farmstead which he is replacing and would like to replace it with this newer structure, and he does have septic, and it's also where the older structure was. We got no comments, positive, or excuse me, negative, and did I get a positive comment, Lonnie?
Yeah.
Yes, I did, from Mr. Craig Johnson, a neighbor. Supported his request. Any questions for me?
Does the committee have any questions?
Okay.
Hearing none, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak for this? Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak against this request? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to accept the Lee variance.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to accept the variance as requested. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion
Aye.
carries. You are against it?
I was against it, yeah.
Okay. 1 against, 4 in favor. Motion carries.
All right. The next one was scheduled to start at 5:05. So we may start this one. This is Carl Shank's application. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission to build a Class C 2,400 head, 960 animal unit pork, finisher swine over 55 pounds, production barn in an agriculture district in Yankton County. Said property is legally described as the east half of the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 26, Township 94, Range 55. Hereinafter referred to as Mission Hill North Township, County of Yankton, State of South Dakota. E911 address is to be announced 308th Street, Mission Hill, South Dakota. So the Planning Commission recommended approval, 8 members for, 2 members nay. And that is for the conditional use for a 2,400 unit hog production barn. Any questions for me? You've got the findings in front of you. We had to go through those findings. We went in. The applicant has guaranteed or has agreed to get the general permit from the South Dakota DNR. So they must follow the chapters 745201 from 745211. Department of Environment and Natural Resources will provide us with the manuals for facility management, nutrient management, wastewater management, and stormwater management.
Pat, that is above and beyond what would be considered for an operation of this size, is that correct?
That is correct. The DENR officially will become involved in a CAFO operation that is 1,000 animal units or greater, and this is 960. But the applicants have agreed to step forward and do the DENR requirements.
And thus far, from what you've seen, protocol has been followed with the applicants at this stage?
At this stage, yes. We have done everything that we're supposed to do. It is absolutely necessary. This is simply a temporary relief, and that they will provide the South Dakota Water Pollution Control Act Administrative Rules of South Dakota, Chapters 7452 to 7452, of the South Dakota Environmental and Natural Resources directs this concentrated animal operations to have no discharge of their manure management system to the waters of the state. The applicant will meet the DNR requirements as stated in the general permit process prior to issuing a building permit. And I do request that we do let planning and zoning do its review of that also, and then the Board of Adjustment review that plan too, so that we have complete transparency before we issue that building permit.
So
They will provide, these are examples of what currently is out there. Now, these are entities that currently have DNR permits. They have to provide these before we provide a building permit. And they're detailed site plans and detailed nutrient management plans. Plus, then the stormwater facility must be provided by the applicant prior to issuing the building permit.
Pat, can you tell me why there's not an environmental impact statement? Can you tell me if it's not required or?
The environmental impact statement is monitored by the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, in which the EPA, or Environmental Protection Agency, is the federal agency that is implementing the federal rules in which they are implemented and financed and put in place and regulated by the state.
Okay, that'll come later then, or?
And so that'll come.
Yeah.
And the state has to, in fact, as we move through and visit with the applicants a bit, but there will be a state permit that'll be applied for. And then from that state permit, one of the very first steps we have to do is the soil borings.
And who fills out that environmental impact statement?
The applicant will show us the site, and then after that, we start doing the test, like for instance, the soil borings. So that has to be a third party that does that. And I'll get backed up with our engineer here real soon, but so they test those soils. What are they testing for? Shallow aquifers, making sure the structural soils are there, making sure we have a proper site to put this barn. If we find out we don't have a proper site right away, then we're done right now.
Sure.
So why don't we do that prior? I'm going to throw out some figures, but it's a multi-$1,000 expenditure to go in there and do those soil borings.
I know, because I worked for TransCanada.
Okay, so it wouldn't really be fair to the applicant to do the multi-million or the multi-$1,000 but they don't do it until they can't build the barn until they do it.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that.
Okay.
So Pat, in regards to the state permitting process, you just want to give us a little more detail on that, or is that something maybe we want to reach out to the engineer for at that time?
How would you like? Would you like to refer to that more? You get to do them. I'm going to say that it's very detailed, and Brad can give me more details. Okay. But from my standpoint, the state permit process is starting right away with contacting DNR up at Pier. And then at that point there, the manual that DNR puts out that we don't have to do because they're the engineers, they're the pros, but it's a good 3 inches, 4 inches thick that they will have to work through.
I believe the Yankton Press of Dakota had an article in the paper back in April on some of the new regulations that have come out on these state CAFO permitting and the DNR. And it gives pretty good detail about it in there and some of the added regulations that require, which I'm sure Mr. Warner will touch on, but I know whether it's nutrient management, manure management, disposal, water. I mean, there is a laundry list of things to check on before it can go to the next stage. Am I correct?
You're correct. And put it this way, the very first step is the planning commission. Okay, we know they're serious, they're going to build some barns. That's the first step we got. Here we go. We know they're going to do it. They're working through the process. Second step is, can we get the conditional use permit? Can we work with Board of Adjustment? The third step is DNR. DNR now puts in a public hearing. DNR puts in a notice, 30-day notice. People have 30 days to notify DNR of any issues they may find. Then DNR has to do the entire process, plus come back to us, as in planning and zoning, for us to review the plan, so that we're sure they did make a nutrient management plan, and they did everything they were supposed to do. And finally, they get to build the building, which is a long process, a very long process. And so there's several different entities involved with this, and that's why DNR is so important, because they have the engineers. And going back to Gary's earlier question, they have the EPA experience. and the requirements.
Pat, I got a couple more questions in regards to this application. Is this proposed site, what's it currently zoned for?
Agriculture.
And what do we classify agriculture at? Is it
It's
just broad?
The intent of agriculture is to preserve it for agriculture production.
Grain and livestock?
Agriculture production, yes.
And how long ago were these zoning rules passed? Or
The
adopted?
original rules were passed in 2003, in which we did have an election, and that was a 70% approval on that election for that one. And then they were changed in 2008, and that one was done by the commission without, it did not get referred. That amendment did not get referred.
So this, the first time it was passed by a vote of the people.
Yes.
Passed at 70-30.
Yep. And the current, what we're working with now is Article 5. And Article 5 was changed in 2008 by that commission at that time. There are some things in here that we're working with now, that we are working with, that were changed back in 2008.
You said this is a Class E facility.
Yes.
How does that fit in our rankings on our current zoning in regards to classes, from 1 being the smallest, 5 being the largest? Where does this kind of fit in on the scale?
2.
A 2?
And we reverse it. We go A is the highest, 10,000 animal units. And it goes down to F, and F is 0 to 300. And if you have less than 300 animal units out in the county, we have no regulations, none. You can build a new barn, you can have new feedlots, you can do all those things. We have no regulations under 300. At 300, we kick in, and that's Class F. And that goes up to Class E, and this is the one we're working with right now, is Class E. So
this is the second smallest per our rules and laws.
Yes. In the world of this business, it's a small entity in this business.
And does this current application conform with our zoning ordinances?
Yes.
Thank you.
It will ask for the variance on the setback, but as long as it's going through the variance process, what we're doing right now is conforming with the ordinance. Yes.
I will not read this to you at every applicant, but I think it relates to Todd's question. In addition to what you wish to share with this board, do you have any evidence or information that would indicate this application would violate the Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved?
No. What is the violation of the ordinance? It would be that if I didn't bring you in front of this open hearing. What would be a violation of the ordinance is that we issued a building permit before we had all the details done. A variance is not a violation of the ordinance. Just remember that. A variance is a legal process within the ordinance framework. A variance is what makes it legal. And so, and conditional use permits are to allow us to review and look at circumstances and issues out in the county so that we can make sure we do the conditions appropriately. And those are legal aspects within zoning.
So why would the applicant be asking for a variance? Let's cover that broad why would the applicant be asking for a variance?
Well, as we go through some of these different applications, we'll find out. But variances are requested just like we just finished one with Mr. Lee, insinuating or current circumstances, available building areas, what's a better land use than another land use, what are areas that fit better than other areas. The variances that we have ran across with these applications here increase the amount of distance from the residents, which is paramount in our process of what we work through in terms of conditional uses for CAFOs. Residents first, then water supplies, and that means everything down to shallow aquifers, but also all the other wells that you see in your ordinance. We have to make sure we're away from all of those. And then we start going down to other things, but those are the paramount ones.
Any other questions of Pat?
Pat, you did say residents are always going to be first, is that correct?
Well, Pat, let me ask this question. On this application, is there a residence within our current setbacks of application number 1?
No,
So it meets the requirements.
meets the requirements.
Thank you.
It's 1,320 feet. There's no residence in that setback.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay, we're going to,
I had another question back
Well,
there.
hold on, we're going to take public comment in a minute, so.
we're going to move into the, Carl,
Yes.
you're up.
We're starting right now.
Yep. You have 10 minutes to present your application.
Before I begin, I just want to give you guys a little background on the process you're going through. This is a type of process that the law refers to as a quasi-judicial proceeding. That means you're sitting in judgment over a request by a private individual that does not affect the county as a whole, as you might see when you are adopting a new ordinance, for instance, or even adopting your budget. In this particular case, they are these requests for variance and conditional uses are because they're special and they affect an individual's rights. There are certain due process constitutional requirements that you guys need to be aware of. And primarily, the Constitution requires that you guys act as an unbiased decision-making body, and that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have and you can't have your own opinions on it, but you need to be able to hear the evidence presented today with an open mind and make a decision based on the information that is presented at this hearing. So, with that being the legal framework, in order to protect the decision that you guys make today, I guess I would ask you all, and I will poll you here, can you affirm for me that you can be an unbiased, neutral decision maker for purposes of listening to the evidence and making a decision just based on what you hear today? Commissioner Swenson, would you agree to do that?
This has been a real struggle. You know, I'm the only county commissioner that was born and raised in Yankton County. All the rest have come from other counties and other states. My grandfather came here in 1897, came to Viborg, then moved to Yankton County. He had 5 children, 2 of them farmers, 2 of them earned PhDs. I've heard stories of floods, fires, tornadoes. I believe that I'm probably one of the persons in this commission that understands the county just maybe just a tad better. As far as being impartial, one of your applicants, Mr. Johnson, and I have been friends since high school. Mr. Shank, his sister ran around with my sister. Being impartial, how do you judge being impartial when you know everybody? Everybody knows you.
There's a specific legal requirement that answers your question. The answer is, can you listen to the evidence presented today with an open mind and make a decision based on the information that you hear?
That's why I'm explaining some of this.
Sure.
Because
You're talking to Mike.
Because it is difficult. But I've been a farmer myself. My wife and I owned land right north of Mission Hill. I got 2 cousins that own land right there in the Mission Hill area. And I'm sorry if this looks funny. I've got a hearing aid because
No problem.
got my hearing damaged during the Vietnam War, and these VA hearing aids don't work very well. Anyway, it is difficult, and I see, I've tried to get a lot of input from all the people I can. 2 people told me that they want these barns, and everyone else that I've talked to, and it's been dozens, not just 2 or 3, it's been dozens. Emails, talk to people on the street, and another thing, Mr. Epps' wife and my wife are cousins.
Gary, we're eating into Mr.
Well, maybe I'm taking up your time, but I think this needs to be explained.
We're eating into Mr. is the time, and
So,
I'm going to extend your time to allow him to explain everything. But yes, no
Yeah.
answer.
If you can't answer the question with a solid yes, then on behalf of my client, I would ask you to abstain from answering these, or from voting on these particular applications.
I'm trying to be impartial because, like I said, I know everybody. So I feel like I know everybody around here. So I'm going to be impartial as I can, but I need to explain these things because, like I said, I've been around here a lot more than the other commissioners.
Unfortunately, I can't have you equivocate. You got to be, yes, I can be impartial. I can listen to the information provided.
I've dealt with this, and I feel that I can because, like I said, I've studied this, and I've weighed it one side or the other, and I have to be impartial because of everything.
I will take that as a yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Woods, can you be impartial?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Kettering?
Yes.
Commissioner Bodenstead?
Yes.
And Commissioner Epp?
Yep.
Thank you. The information on this particular application that is important, that bears on the details that was not presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission are best presented to this body by the engineer, Mr. Brad Warner from Stockwell Engineers, and he is here to share with you the details of the actual facilities that were not available at the time of the Planning and Zoning meeting. Those have been fleshed out, and I believe that updated drawings have been provided to you guys in your packets for this evening. Is that correct, Pat?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll yield the floor to Mr. Warner.
You choose to have him speak now or speak during the 1 hour time, because you got about 7 minutes left.
4 minutes left.
I doubt he's going to need that much, if I had to guess, but he will set the stage for all of the applications.
Good evening. My name is Brad Warner with Stockwell Engineers in Yankton. We've been engaged by all of the applicants to provide the engineering oversight for these facilities with respect to the DENR permitting process. How much time do I have?
3 minutes.
Oh, God. Okay. The list that I was forwarded to discuss, there were 7 or 8, 9 items on it. And I don't know if we can pull up the site map real quick that we sent. Okay. So they are.
You'll have additional time.
Okay.
When the hour comes up for the people speaking for the applicant.
Okay.
This is the initial presentation of the applicant.
I was going to go over some of the items that were requested to be provided, but I can shift gears and talk about whatever the attorney directs me to.
Maybe answer the question that was posed to you while you were sitting there earlier, the permitting process.
Yes, thank you. The permitting process is really two sides to it, the design side and the construction side. The design side, and we're involved with both of them. We're not physically constructing it, but we're involved in an oversight standpoint for both sides. The design side, I'll briefly go over it, and I can certainly answer any questions, but we'll go out and conduct a topographic survey to know the lay of the land. Geotechnical, and I'll touch a little more on that in a minute. We then look at, based on the results of geotechnical, the adjustments to the design. We kind of have a preliminary design right now, but that'll certainly change. Maybe it won't change, but we'll have more information after geotechnical borings are completed, cleaner understanding of the geology of the site, and then we will adjust as needed for structural strength, any water issues that may be present, etc. We also do a nutrient management plan that'll incorporate both state and county rules. The rules are a little different, and we use whichever is more stringent. A lot of times it is the county. They have a little greater setbacks than the state does at times. We'll submit that paperwork to the DNR for their review. They do public notice that application for 30 days, at which time they'll take public comments and input. If there's any revisions, questions, changes, etc., we'll go through those with the DNR to make sure they follow the rules. We also do a stormwater permit, which is required part of the construction side. On the construction side of the equation, we will have a pre-construction meeting with the producer, the contractor, dirt work contractor, any contractor that's involved. We'll go over the requirements of the permit, what we can and cannot see, what we want to see, what we don't want to see, et cetera. We'll provide construction staking as well as inspection during construction and coordinate geotechnical testing with the third party. We keep the DNR abreast of what's going on at all times. It's up to them to come out when they want. We don't know when they're coming out, so I'd let them know that, hey, stuff is or is not going on at this time, so they can come out at their will. Then at the back end, we'll collect the tests. If there's any changes made during construction, we'll quantify and put those on the plans, provide that information to the DNR, as well as some other forms that we have to sign off on as engineers for them. Geotechnical, I'm running out of time, but we've got some time after this. The state does require geotechnical. We will do geotechnical anyway, just so that we have the information. We can provide a proper and adequate, safe design for the facility. For this particular site, or for all of these sites, as they have the same relative footprint, the DNR requires 2 soil borings, both of which, need to be at least 6 feet below the bottom of the pit. And one of them will be a deep boring, which, depending on what we encounter as we go down, could be anywhere from 40 to 60, 70 feet. And that'll tell us the soil types, any water.
Time's up.
Okay. And a couple other things.
I did incorrectly indicate that you would have time to speak in the 1 hour period, but I noted that you had not signed up to testify.
Okay.
So the only time you can speak is at each applicant.
Okay.
When you go through it.
It's okay if I yield my time to him, though, correct?
Yield your time to him. Okay.
Brett,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a quick question to clarify?
Yes.
Mr. Warner, can you give me a layman's term, geotechnical? You use that term a lot. Can you
Sorry.
give us a little more layman's?
Basically, it's a geotechnical engineer that'll oversee the soil borings. And they're looking at the soil types, the soil strength, water, the presence of water, the absence of water, the coloring, the modeling, et cetera, of the soil, just getting the physical properties of the soil that's out there. And we in turn use that from a structural standpoint for bearing strength and side or lateral earth pressure, just like on a basement. We have the soil pushing up, so we want to make sure it's strong enough, obviously.
You said you had 2 borings, one
Correct.
shallow and one deep?
The shallow one, if you want to call it that, has to be at least 6 feet below the bottom of the structure, the waste containment structure. We typically, this is an 8-foot pit, so we would have, I haven't done the design yet, but I would assume 5 feet in the ground, 3 feet out of the ground roughly. So we would need an 11-foot boring, and I don't do any less than 20 feet on the shallow ones. Or 6 feet, whichever gets me deeper in the ground.
How close are the aquifers to this proposed CAFO?
When we do the soil borings, part of that all goes to the DENR, the soil borings, along with the location of them with respect to our facility. Which
you have,
they
you have
will
a general idea right now, though, don't you?
No, sir. I don't want to speculate as to where. I guess ultimately the entire state's over an aquifer if we go deep enough.
You don't have a map of the aquifers?
Not with me, no.
But there are maps of the aquifers?
There are, yep.
Okay.
The DNR does review the data and renders an opinion as to the depth of the aquifer. And if they feel there's a concern based upon the rules, then we're either denied or we're not allowed.
Would this be what it looks like?
Yep, I believe that's the first occurrence map, yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good. Yep, thank you.
Now you want me to start the hour?
Just wait up a second. Rob, we'll start with the testimony on application number 1. I count 16 people, so each one would get a few seconds less than 4 minutes, but let's just say 4 minutes. Many of these people are going to speak on all 3 or maybe some of them on all 7 of it. I would like to give everybody the opportunity somehow to speak on 1 or more. Would it be appropriate to hand this to whoever wants to speak and decide how they want to line up? Or do you want me just to call them?
So Donnie, maybe somebody wants to give us some of their time first, so instead of there's 16, there's 10 or some additional, number. That'd be a fair request. So they can give it to somebody.
So should I just call the names off and then they can decide the order and we get started?
Or if somebody wants to defer time to somebody else, I think that would be fine.
Mitchell Peterson. Mitchell? Do you have property in the county?
I am an attorney from Sioux Falls and represent several local landowners.
You don't have property in the county?
My clients do.
You don't own property in the county?
Me personally,
Yeah.
I do not.
Okay. Then it'd be,
Don, I think our rule says the representatives.
oh,
Our rule says they're.
okay, you're on, thank you. You're on then. Mitchell, do you want to line up? I'll give you this list of people. We'll give you a couple minutes to group them together and
Yeah.
get an order.
And I know a variance is not the subject of this first matter, but it is on the following 6. If I could have a total of maybe 10 minutes, 12 minutes, I could probably tell you.
That's up to your
tell you
group.
For all 7.
That's up to your group. If they're okay with that, that's up to your group.
That's fine.
And then the rest can fill in whatever time I don't use, and other members who aren't in the group can fill in.
So do I do?
Okay, let me read the list off. Mitchell, Daniel Doleski? Dolish. Amy Wilson, Dawn Braunschweiger, Daniel Grant, Thad Udick, Ron Reby, Dennis Oden, Vicki Tanner, Olson, I'm sorry. Vicki Tanner,
Inez.
Inez, Travis Wilson, Tammy maybe, Jennifer Kofi, and Dale Hebdn. Ebden? DA, yeah. Okay. Those are the ones that are in the first group.
Thank you for my time to Mitch, Daniel Grant.
Mr. Chairman.
For my time, Mitch as well, Brendan Granville.
Does anybody else want to refer their,
I'll refer my time better.
well, let me go this way. Does anybody not want to?
You do not want,
Vicki Tanner.
Okay, Vicki Tanner.
you want to speak then?
You want to speak too? Okay, gotcha.
Ms. Tanner, you said you wanted to speak?
Yeah.
There's a couple other hands right there.
Dan's name is not on here, is it?
I'm on the back page, Mr. Chairman. The auditor.
Oh, yeah, you are. Yep. And so is Brandon.
Amy Wishon.
Want to speak? Come on up.
She got 4 minutes.
She's on the,
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Okay.
Actually, 3.5. They all rest of them given their time.
3.5.
Go ahead.
Amy Wishon. I live at 30848 444th Avenue. I'm here to testify in opposition to the 7 proposed hog facilities. The following applicants have not met the requirements for conditional use permits for animal feeding operations: Shank 1, Shank 2, Shank 3, Johnson, Cuts 1, Cuts 2, and Cuts 3. In Article 5, Section 519, under the Animal Feeding Operation Performance Standards, it states that animal feeding operations shall prepare a facility management plan. The County Planning Commission and Board of Adjustments will review the need for control measures on a site-specific basis, taking into consideration prevailing wind direction and topography. The following procedures to control flies and odors shall be addressed in a management control plan. As of Friday of last week, this plan did not exist, nor was it available to public for review to prepare informed comments. This plan was not submitted with the applications. The Planning and Zoning Board did not have this information available to consider whether or not to recommend to the commission to grant or not to grant the conditional use permits. So the Planning Board could not have reviewed this information to even make an informed decision. The Planning Board and the public are in the dark on what the applicants actually intend to do, how they plan to do it, and if they will meet the standards defined by the zoning ordinances. Under the comprehensive plan of Yankton County, it is the duty of the county officials elected by us, the citizens of the Yankton County, to have all the required information available to all parties to make an unbiased decision. And then I'm submitting this written testimony for record.
Thank you, and I didn't read this, but I'll read it again. I think you
Yep.
just stated what your objection was, but in addition to what you wish to share with the board, do you have any evidence or information that would indicate the application would violate the Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved?
Yes.
And that's what you're...
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Don, can we ask a question in the comments, or you want to do that later on?
Later on.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll never get the hour. Okay. Mr. Dobish. Getting better?
Good evening, everybody. My name's Dan Dolish, and first of all, I'd like to start off by asking you that make sure that my testimony is entered for all 7 of the conditional use permits.
Now, I got to read the statement to you.
Yes.
In addition to what you wish to share with this board, do you have any evidence or information that would indicate this application would violate the Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved?
I believe I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Under Article 5, the agricultural district of the Yankton zoning, it states, new animal confinements and waste facilities shall be located no closer than the following regulations prescribed from any residential dwelling. An animal feeding operation or a residential dwelling may request the required setback to be lessened or waived in accordance to the variance of the procedures. As a waiver, a waiver would run with the land and be filled with the Yankton County Register of Deeds. When making this request, you are asking the homeowner to give up its protected right because of the setback. The zoning clearly states that residential waiver request forms are available. Most importantly, the waiver runs with the land and filled with the Register of Deeds. A waiver that runs with the land is a permanent condition that attaches to that property. If the owner wishes to sell the home, prospective buyers, must be made aware that they will inherit the waiver. I am submitting this. This is my first testimony. I also have a couple more. I hope you'll let me continue.
Minute 22.
Okay, thank you, sir. Even if the applicants have, because of the following required information was not submitted with the applications, as the zoning states, a site plan must be part of the application. All of the above conditional use permit applications are incomplete and should be given back to the applicants for resubmittal. The reason I say that is because the location and topography of the proposed structures, including the adjacent property owners and proximity of federal state highways, county, township, and city roads. None of this stuff was given to us. We got a little picture of a map. There was no north arrow. There was no actual dimensions, no shape, where it's going to be built on the lot, the exact sizes, the location of the buildings on the, we have none of this information. And, you know, in order for us to proceed, you know, a lot of this has to be taken care of, so. Also, the comprehensive plan, I believe you all know what that is, 11-2-12. The purpose of this comprehensive county plan shall, for the purpose of protecting and guiding the physical, social, economical, and environmental development of the county.
Sir?
To protect the tax base and to encourage.
Just let me, your time's up. Would you donate Your time, Dan, finish. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much as you don't.
To encourage a distribution of population or mode of land utilization that will facilitate the economical and adequate provisions of transportation of roads, waterways, drainage, sanitation, education, recreation, and other public requirements, to lessen government expenditures and to conserve and develop natural resources. I want to talk about shall. It states in there shall. That means must. So I'm asking you that you must listen to what this comprehensive plan is saying. So I want to talk about tax base. There are many of our peers in studies that talk that homes close to these CAFOs can reduce up to 88% if they're within 1/8 of a mile. I happen to be within a 1/2 mile of one and a mile of another, so I'm going to get like double smacked here. So I'm going to lose a lot of my valuation that I've put into my home in the past 17 years that I've been there. It was an old farm building when I bought it. A lot of people live there, in and out. But Vicki and I have fixed up this home, and we put a lot of our money into it, and this is basically my retirement, and I just hate to see a hog barn this close to me, you know, not only hurting me, but hurting my wife and all the neighbors around us. That I know in particular, I have 3 neighbors that have 3 brand new houses, and I know they're all within a mile of these CAFOs. And it's like, when our property values drop, we're coming in and we're going to be asking for to lower our, revalue our homes. A couple weeks ago in the P&D, there was a survey done over a 3-day period, and over 70% of the Yankton citizens said they don't want these CAFOs or a corporate hog factory, but it seems to be falling on deaf ears. When it comes to the people saying no, shouldn't the commissioners of the Board of Adjustments listen to what we've got to say? I would hope so. A few years ago, I wanted to make some changes to my property, and I was told that I couldn't make them because it would have created 2 non-conforming agricultural lots. Well, 6 of these units are going to be non-conforming because they require variances. And I feel these facilities are exploiting weakened ordinances that seem to not protect people, but instead concentrate the gains in the hands of a few, even sending profits out of our community, out of our state, leaving us with the negative effects of pollution, disease, or should I just say, crap. Thank you. I'd like to submit this.
So there's 1 minute left of the other person that gave it up.
Okay, thank you. Who else wanted to speak versus giving up their time?
That guy gave up his time for, so does he want to do the rest?
Miss?
No, he
raised your
gave
hand.
his
You wanted
time
to
up
speak.
to Mr. Robinson.
Vicki Tanner.
Did he use all my time?
You have a minute.
3 minutes.
I have a minute left that I can do for a minute.
Yeah.
But, Mr. Chairman, Vicki Tanner there said she'd like to speak.
Vicki, would you come up,
And
please?
she signed up.
Start.
Good afternoon. My name is Vicki Tanner, and I'd like to request my testimony today for all 7 barns. Okay?
Vicki.
And I also,
I
yeah?
gotta read this to you.
Okay.
In addition to what you wish to share with this board, do you have any evidence that would indicate this application would violate the Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved?
Yes, I do.
And
Okay?
you'll state what that is.
I certainly will. And I'm supposed to ask all of you to speak up in your mics because I can't hear you out there. Okay? All right. Okay. Again, my name is Vicki Tanner. I live at 30732 444th Avenue in Mission Hill, South Dakota. I'm going to talk about due process testimony. Any member of this board that shows bias must abstain from giving an opinion or voting. This is a conflict of interest to public process and fairness. In the June 13th, 2017 Planning and Zoning Board meeting, Commissioner Don Kettering stated, "You're right about me. I have made up my mind about these." How is having your mind made up giving the citizens a fair, neutral hearing? On at least one occasion, 2 of the county commissioners, acting now as Board of Adjustment members, were heard on the radio interview expressing their support of the granting of the conditional use permit for hog barns being heard at this hearing. Commissioner Todd Woods and Don Kettering were on the radio program Alive at 5 on June 26th. Commissioner Don Kettering specifically stated, "Of course I'm in favor, and yeah, I have a lot of opinions on it." Also heard on the broadcast was Commissioner Todd Woods, who states, "This is not a bad idea." He also called the barns economic development. This is obviously gross bias. These 2 commissioners must remove themselves from participating in any aspect of this hearing to avoid the faintest whimp of tainted process. United States Code, Title 42, Chapter 21, Subchapter 1, 1983, is a civil action for deprivation of rights. This section is cited below for your reference. I'm not going to waste your time, but I am going to submit this as evidence so you can read what the code says. Is my 4 minutes up?
You have a minute 12.
Okay. Secondly, I'm here to raise 2 objections to violations by this board under Section 1907 of the Yankton County Zoning on Variances. First, it states that the public hearing shall be held. Any party may appear in person, by agent, or by attorney. It does not say that the party must be a resident or own property to testify. It does not say that information to support your opposition must be turned in a week before the hearing. All interested parties may appear. Second, it states the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. It is absolutely the actions of the applicants in the case of 6 of these barns, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6, and number 7, that the reason for need of the variance is the action of the applicant. And further, the zoning states the granting of such variance is based upon reason of demonstrable and acceptable hardship as distinguished from variations for purposes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Questions? Questions?
We're taking questions later.
Okay. Was there another individual? Tammy?
She the 4th or the 5th one?
4th. By my watch, you still got about 40 minutes.
You want to read her thing?
Oh, no, thanks. In addition to what you wish to share with this board, do you have any evidence or information that would indicate this application would violate Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved?
Yes, I do feel, just as was just stated by Ms. Tanner, that you all are charged with the responsibility to hear all concerned parties and that the residents be given first priority. I have great concern about that I'll speak about tonight. So please hear that.
Record, please.
Yes, I'm just about to do so, sir. I'm wanting to clarify that my testimony is for all 7 barns. Good evening. My name is Tammy Mabey, Tamara Mabey in full. I reside at 3803 West 11th Street in Yankton, South Dakota. I'm a member resident of Yankton County. I'm here to testify regarding my concerns for the water quality in Yankton County, as well as a deep concern for the Yankton County wetlands, waterways, 100-year flood zone plain, and the Yankton and Vermilion Aquifer if the Shank Hog Confinement Facilities 1, 2, and 3, Cuts Hog Confinement Facilities 1, 2, and 3, and Johnson Hog Confinement Facility are built. I am testifying in opposition to these proposed facilities. All of these above-mentioned sites are either directly in the Yankton County 100-year flood zone, they contain wetlands, they contain the waterways in Yankton County, or the land parcels sit on top of the lower James, Missouri aquifer, which was clarified earlier. It's hydraulically connected with Vermilion's drinking water through the lower Vermilion, Missouri aquifer supply. I've included links to the documents which I've quoted from, and I will submit these at the end of my testimony that they can be entered into the record. Regarding the Cuts parcel number 2, I'm presenting these 3 maps. They include a wetlands map first, then a topo map second, and I've just...
Do you want to wait on that until that application comes up?
No, just because I said all 7 barns to be considered if possible. So I'm just going to submit them all at the same time, if that's all right, just for efficiency's sake. Is that acceptable?
Okay.
Thank you. So I am including maps for all 7 just for efficiency's sake. I will cut to the chase here. There are wetlands, floodplains, waterways on all of these situations, and they're not in all of them, but they're detailed out in my documentation. In summary, I'm deeply concerned about the risk that these proposed facilities will pose to our water for drinking. Please hear me again, drinking water for residents. That's at the top of the zoning ordinance that's been read several times. The drinking water for other uses in Yankton County. Before any more action could be taken by the Board of Adjustments allowing these proposed facilities to move forward in their application process, I respectfully ask you all to consider all of these requests tonight and testimonies tonight. Thank you so much.
Was that the list then? Was there anybody else that wanted to? You're not going to give up your time?
I don't think you need to. Take 40 minutes.
Okay.
16, they've got, 44 left.
I just need to make an announcement for the commissioners. When you're, either pull your mics up closer to your, when you speak, but you're fading in and out with them when you're speaking.
But it won't pull any farther.
So let me know what I can help you with.
It'll come on, disconnect over here. You pull too hard, it'll disconnect.
I'm afraid I'm going to. So Rob, for consideration while we're doing this, if somebody applies their comments to all 7 of them, does that mean we detract 4 minutes from each of the?
No. You take that person off that other one.
Just take it's still an hour.
I don't need the chorus and no's. I asked Rob the question. Okay, go ahead, Ted.
Okay.
I got to read my little statement here.
Okay.
In addition to what do you wish to share with this board, do you have any evidence that would, or information that would indicate this application would violate Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
And those things, that evidence and information is from the young lady, her testimony, and the gentleman back there, his testimony.
I'd like you to tell me what it is, please. Tell me we're doing this for a reason. We want to know what we've done wrong. So tell us that.
Well, I didn't exactly write it down. I was at the meeting.
What's your name, please?
My name is Thad Utek. I live at 928 Bukowski Drive in Mission Hill.
Just say what we did wrong. Just.
I think you guys granted those, you guys approved those variances without having all the information. Or at least I didn't have the information.
That's all you need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I live 1 mile east of one of these proposed confined animal feeding operations. I'm not against farmers. I think farmers are great in general. And I live by the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And every community that has allowed these types of concentrated, confined animal feeding operations has had serious problems. It only takes 5 minutes on the internet, and you can look up study after study from Duke University, from Iowa University. There's just all kinds of information about poisoned water wells, polluted air, dropping home values. And also there's evidence from the EPA itself. And I've included some of that here. People have higher instances of, if they live near one of these facilities, they have higher instances of tuberculosis, asthma, chronic bronchitis, upper respiratory symptoms, respiratory dysfunction. There's just all kinds of bad things. Even if a child goes to school and in that classroom at school, the teacher can smell livestock twice a month, that child has a 23% higher risk of asthma. I don't want my grandsons to have that. We don't deserve that. These places are too close to a populated area. There's better places for them. And I'd like to know, if the county approves this, what kind of measures you would put in place to protect me. Are there some sort of test strips that you're going to swab my house and see if there's not feces from the hogs on there? Is there some air sampling that you guys intend to do? I'd like to know how that works. Here's a list from the EPA of toxic chemicals that these places give off. I've submitted all these links earlier last week. Some of these chemicals are cancer-causing. People who live near the lagoons have higher increases of headaches, shortness of breath, wheezing, excessive coughing, diarrhea. This is a mile away from my home, and I'm in the wind zone from it. I'm not going to be able to use my land the way that I want to. I'm not going to be able to have backyard barbecues and use my swimming pool and have family get-togethers. So you're taking away from me a right that I have to use my property if this is approved. This may have seemed like a good idea.
Are you in an ag zone, zoned ag?
I mean, I live in the city of Mission Hill.
Okay.
I don't know.
No.
It's in the city of Mission Hill. So I'm just asking you guys, it may have sounded like a good idea in the beginning before all these details came out. Every week we're studying and we're reading more about how bad these places can be. And just reconsider how much it's going to hurt us. What is that guy with his wife has COPD, what is he supposed to do if this gets approved? This is going to be very difficult for them and all the other people around Mission Hill.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
This is another 4-minute one.
No.
I'll answer your question first, please.
What question?
Well, aren't you going to ask me?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Oh, my, I'm surprised.
I thought you had some.
No.
In addition to what you wish to share with this board, do you have any evidence or information that would indicate that this application would violate Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved?
Yes, I have the evidence, and in all my honesty,
Good.
I want you folks, all of you, everyone here, to hear me. Because I'm 83, and This isn't my first rodeo. Okay, can I begin?
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Inez LaPrath. I live at 30732 44th Avenue at Mission Hill, 57046, and I'm here to testify in opposition to the granting of the conditional use permits for the proposed hog confinement animal feeding operations, all the barns and all of them. At this time, I'm stating that my opposition to the Board of Adjustments, your violation of citizens' rights to public participation. The zoning states, this meeting with public hearing, Mr. Garrity, I'm referring to you, sir. This zoning states these meetings designated as public hearings shall allow the testimony for all interested parties. You've been engaged in constant attempts to limit our participation. For example, telling the public that they had to sign up a week ahead of time to speak, then changing that to the Friday before. Next, you tell us you can sign up right until before the hearing. Also, you've changed from one day to the next before the hearing who could speak. Who could speak? We all should have a right to speak. We all should have a right to hear. That certain people could get to testify if they lived near one of the facilities with one other public comment. Then you told us there would be limited time, just like today. Boy, we gotta hurry up here, and I'm not a person who talks too fast. My daughter says I do. Limited time for the citizens' comments. But the icing on this horrible cake is that you then announced that only these that live or own properties in the county can speak. This is a travesty of stifling the public's ability to speak beyond the pale. Yankton County zoning reads, and I've got it here. I've got it all written down, but it's going to take a while. But these meetings of the board's adjustments shall be opened. Well, I'm going to plead for more time. Adjustments shall be open to the public. These meetings, designated as public hearings, shall allow for testimony from all interested parties. That means every darn one of us. The board acting in zone cases shall keep minutes of its proceedings showing the vote for each member upon each question, or if absence or failing to vote indicate such fact, and shall keep records of its examinations and other official actions.
Time's up, ma'am.
I'm going to ask someone else.
Time's up. I want to ask this guy, I want to ask Mr. Robinson.
Peterson.
Peterson, that there's approximately 20 minutes left. Does that allow enough time for you to cover your topic that everybody else gave their time up to?
Inez is signed up for Barn 2.
All 7 of them. All 7 of them. And I'm protesting all 7. Sir, please hear me.
For number 2.
Please hear me.
Well, I'll listen to you in number 2. Thank you.
You listen to me when?
When 2, application 2.
When I'm done here? Okay.
No.
But
no, ma'am.
I wanted to show you something. It was so important.
What, show it to us when we go to application number 2.
Please look. Please, I beg you. Please look. I know you live comfortably out.
Okay, come on, let's go on, let's move on.
But take this.
We've got hours of this to go on.
Take this in consideration, sir.
Next person, please. We'll take him. Leave him over here. Leave him with her. Yeah.
Mom.
said.
Here are these pictures. So who's coming up next?
Sir, your name is?
Dale.
Dale?
Ebda.
Kebda.
Did it drop another piece of paper?
This is number 7, I think.
Dale,
No.
in addition to what you wish to share here with this board, do you have any evidence or information that would indicate this application would violate the Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved?
I believe we are lacking information.
Okay, and you'll state what information that is.
Well, number one notification, if I hadn't had...
Sir, will you go to the mic so everybody can hear you?
Number one notification of the process here. If I hadn't had a friend that called me and said, hey, you got to sign up to speak, I don't know about it. Okay?
Okay.
I'm a farmer. I raise produce. I'm not around the radio. So I don't know if there was an ad on the radio that said this is the process.
Okay.
So is the ability to be notified about the process of being able to speak tonight. Now, I'm Dale Hebda. My resident address is 110 Produce Road, Mission Hill, South Dakota. My business is Hebda Produce, priorly known as Garrity's Prairie Gardens, 30661 444th Avenue, Mission Hill, South Dakota. I didn't know if you allowed props or not, but before I came in tonight, I went out to my fields. That's a mountain fresh tomato growing outside. These are 4th of July heirloom tomatoes growing outside. And as you would naturally suspect, those are above ground. We don't dig them. Onions, on the other hand, grow below the surface of the soil. I'm the largest asparagus grower in the state of South Dakota. I have 4.5 acres, all above ground. This year, we only have an acre of strawberries. Usually, we're upwards somewhere around 2 and 3. My concern is dust particles and pathogens that have the potential to travel through the air. We can't control Mount St. Helens when it blew and affected the northern United States and crop production from the ash and soot that dropped out of that volcano. We can't control the 2012 drought that occurred when we were dusty and the crops were a disaster around almost the entire nation. When Roundup first came in, a very popular chemical, widely accepted by agriculture. How many of you know that California just passed it as a carcinogen, and it's banned for use in their state? 30 years, 40 years later after its introduction. We can't foresee the future, but we have a chance today to look at, if we approve this, how do we protect the future? 7 years ago, I decided to move away from fungicides, chemicals, and I went to natural and organic products on my production. How many of you buy a pepper like that in the store? That's the way they come out of the field. They shine. The tomatoes shine. They're high in bricks, which is natural sugars in the crops.
Dale, you have about 40 seconds left.
I'm not only concerned about the people that buy my products directly, but it's the children in the school systems that the school service buys my products. There's no way I can measure that pathogen. It's a huge potential liability risk. So lastly, since I only have a few seconds left, I think if you approve these things, air quality monitors need to be installed immediately, prior to anything being built, and they're tested, and the results are paid for by the county. I need to know what my customers are buying and what I'm selling. If it changes my cost of operations, I think it's only reasonable for me to expect that I'm reimbursed by Yankton County.
Good luck.
Understand. When the minimum wage went up, my cost of operations on 40 acres went up by $40,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By my watch, I think we have just about 16 minutes.
Thank you for your attention tonight. My name is Mitch. My answer is yes.
In addition to what you wish to share with this board, do you have any evidence or information that would indicate the application would violate the Yankton County zoning ordinance if approved?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Mitch Peterson. I'm an attorney at the Davenport, Evans, Hurwitz & Smith Law Firm in Sioux Falls. One of my primary practice areas is zoning, predominantly CAFOs. I have been involved in probably 20 of these in the last 5 years. I think every zoning decision from our South Dakota Supreme Court over the last 5 years have been my cases. I have been before probably 2/3 of the counties East River. So I've seen a variety of ways of how things are done. And I have quite a bit of experience. I'd like to share that with you because it's readily apparent that the process here just doesn't comply with the ordinances. And their application doesn't. And ultimately, it's not about what you as board members have done wrong. It's not a criticism of you. It's an issue of have the applicants met their burden. It's their job to make sure that they give you the information to prove that the ordinances are met. And if they're not, you just can't say yes to it. Even if you want to for economic reasons, there are rules that have to be followed. And it is the applicant's burden to prove that. So it's really about whether they've met their burden tonight. It's not about you in particular. In particular, under Section 1905, Subpart 6, this is the conditional use permit regulation that's applicable to Board of Adjustment proceedings. That's what we're doing tonight. It's the conditional use permit decision. A building permit is a separate process. They could build this hog confinement facility and use it to store hay. But if they want to use it for hogs, they need a conditional use permit to do it. So that's why we're here tonight, to find out have they satisfied the burden of proof. And under 1905-6, it says before any conditional use is issued, the Board of Adjustment shall make written findings certifying compliance with the specific rules governing individual conditional uses. Those are found back in Article 5 that deal with CAFOs. So this thought about we don't need our details, we don't need to give you our engineering report, which I've seen, an engineering report is typically between 90 and 120 pages long. Every single Board of Adjustment I have ever been in front of in the last 5 years has those on the night you're doing this. And it's been available to the public for study for at least 10 days, which is not nearly enough, but that is minimally compliant with due process. They have the cart in front of the horse here. They absolutely do, because your time to determine whether your conditional use requirements in Article 5 are met is tonight. It's not later when they want a building permit. Because if you say, now we want to go back and look at this, they're going to say, tough, you had your chance back on July 5th to take a look at it. And if you deny it based on that, you're going to get sued. So tonight's the night to look at it. And it's not for DENR to look at county requirements. DENR looks at exclusively Clean Water Act compliance and water regulations of the state. They do not look at air quality at all. They will not look at odor. They will not look at anything other than water, because it's a water discharge permit. That is the only thing that they do. And additionally, as their engineer, Mr. Warner, stated, often county requirements are more stringent. They're stricter. They're harder to meet than state requirements. But you know what DENR does if their requirements are met but the counties aren't met? They grant the permit, because it's their job to deal with state regulations. It's your job to deal with county regulations, and that time is tonight. A bit about risk. That's what lawyers do. We deal with risk all of the time, and that's what all decision makers do. You have virtually no risk in saying no tonight, because you might collectively have 10 different reasons why you shouldn't grant this permit. It's not good for the economy, it's not good for air quality, they're missing different, whatever it is. Say you've got 10 of them. If they appeal to a court and the court says, you guys were off base on 9 of the 10, but you were right on one of them. You know what happens? The court says you made the right decision. On the other hand, if you grant this permit and we appeal, and we will, and I've done it all the time, I'm used to doing it, and have a petition out in 48 hours. If we put up 10 reasons why you shouldn't have granted the permit, there's 10 different reasons why you had no authority to do this, we only have to win one in court. Only one. So there's a lot less risk in saying no tonight. You've got a lot of shade and a lot of cover based on how the law works. Additionally, you avoid liability with unconstitutional takings, due process issues, Section 1983 claims, nuisance claims, reimbursement claims from farmers who's now have junk on the fruit that's going into schools. You avoid all of that liability. A bit on how the ordinances work. Article 5 are your CAFO-specific control requirements. These are the things that only apply to CAFOs. There's all sorts of other conditional uses, but it's Article 5 that deals with CAFOs. Article 19, and in particular 1905, is applicable to all conditional use applications. So whether it's a CAFO or any other thing on that list, there are other things that have to be met. So if the applicant hasn't done their job of putting an engineering report on your desk that shows detailed compliance with everything in Article 5, you can't say yes to it. I mean, under your ordinances, that's just not within the authority that Yankton County Commission has granted to the Board of Adjustment. You have to say no. But even if they've met all of those requirements, you still have a decision to make under 1905. You have a decision to make. You may grant it, but you aren't required to grant a conditional use permit just because Article 5 is satisfied. 1905 requires the exercise of discretion and judgment. Is this the right idea for the community? Specifically under 1905 6H, you have to decide, even if all of the specific CAFO requirements are met, is this generally compatible with the neighbors and the adjacent properties? And particularly, is this in the public interest? So I'd submit to you, you've got an important judgment call to make tonight, even if you believe all of the CAFO-specific control requirements are met. You don't just turn your brain off then. Now you're making a decision for all of these people out in the room and all the other people in your community of what's the right decision, what's the right policy decision. And you say no on that basis, you're never getting reversed by a court, because the court's not going to reweigh whether you made the right decision and weighed public interest correctly. That's inherently within your discretion to make that decision. On to the specific merits of Article 5 and the CAFO-specific control requirements or performance standards. Again, under Section 105 of your ordinance, it says that every rule throughout the entire ordinances are minimum requirements that have to be met. Minimum requirements. So that's important to think about when we get to Article 5. In particular, the fact that 6 out of the 7 applications have requested a variance conclusively demonstrates they do not comply with the requirements. Otherwise, they wouldn't be asking you for a variance. That is your proof right there on the next 6 barns that are coming up. That they're asking permission not to follow the rules admits that they're not following the rules. It's that clear. Otherwise, they wouldn't be asking for permission. Number 2, under the definition of an animal feeding operation in your ordinances, what class are these CAFOs? Are they really Class E? Because under the definition for an AFO, animal feeding operation, if there's commonality of ownership within a mile, then they have to be considered one CAFO if they're within a mile. And that is the case for some of these. Additionally, even if they're not more than a mile apart, if they have a common area for manure disposal, they are considered one CAFO. Even if all 7 of these, if they're using the same system, same manure hauler, and using the same contracts, you have to consider them as a whole. Your ordinances say that. And you haven't been given the details about what their manure management plan is to know whether you count them together or not. I don't know how you're supposed to do your jobs when they haven't given you the documentation to do the important work that you need to do. It's not your fault, it's their fault. They didn't do the work that they needed to do. They got the cart in front of the horse to try to float this idea out. which I think is pretty telling about the level of diligence and attention to detail they may provide as operators once these things are up and running. So I'd submit to you that your very first job of determining which class it is, so which rules are we looking at, you can't even answer that question based on what they've given you. So you got to say no for that reason. Say come back when you've got your ducks in a row. Number 3, there's no engineering report. Again, this is completely unprecedented to have no engineering report at the conditional use hearing. I've never seen it before. And it's required. Under 519 Section 10, a facility management plan is required at this point in time. 519.10 requires it, and it has a bunch of stuff that has to be in it, including what is their system for manure collection, storage, and treatment. Why would that be on there? To determine whether you count these together or not. I mean, that's one reason why that's part of what your facility management plan requires. They have to explain how they're handling dead animals, what they're doing for screening and buffering to try to control noise, glare, odor, flies. They have to provide information to you about the prevailing winds. I've yet to see a CAFO application that doesn't have an odor footprint study. You know nothing about where the odor is going to drift. You have to have that and know about prevailing winds and topography in order to make a site-by-site and site-specific decision about what additional controls may be required. They haven't given you the information to do the important work that you need to do tonight. Additionally, that facility management plan needs to have within it information about the topography, stormwater management, manure removal and application to make sure that they're meeting the manure application setbacks, which is different than where the CAFO itself can be located. There needs to be industry best management practices included. They don't have that. And there needs to be information about climate and weather information. They don't have any of that. It's required under 519.10. Additionally, under 519.7 and 5, it talks about various setbacks that are measured from the CAFO structures to various things that would be surrounding it. We don't have information about where those are. To measure from point A to point B, you got to know where point A and point B are. And they haven't provided the information about where their structures are. I'd submit to you, there's no possible way they could prove that they've met the setbacks. And I was at the auditor's office this afternoon. I was told there's been nothing else new, and now we find out maybe there's some other site plans to which the public had precisely zero access to even read, let alone study, formulate thought, and come here, prepared to oppose it. That's a due process violation right there. That's a slam dunk up here. Again, who is running the operation? Section 520 of your ordinances state that if any application is being sought with the intention of transferring ownership, control, operation, that itself is, you have to deny it for that reason. You need the real person who's actually be running this to come here to look at you and answer your questions. How is it that 7 of these somewhat unrelated people all have the same lawyer, the same engineer, all at the same time with exactly the same footprint? What is the story? And I'd suggest to you, we don't know the story. For that reason, you've got to say no. I do want to talk about variances. I can save that to later because I know I'm nearing the end of my time. But I would ask the comments I've just made, will they be considered for all 7 hog barns? Good, I appreciate it. Would you like me to address variances this time, and then I can, in all likelihood, stop talking for the night?
No.
Okay, I'll wait to do it. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I would entertain a motion to go to executive session.
Wasn't on the agenda though, was it? No. Wasn't on the agenda, was it, Don?
No. Vote for the public to hear.
So much for due
Do it
process.
now. Vote.
It has nothing to do with, my suggestion has nothing to do with due process. It has to do with what's right for the people in this room.
Then you should share it with us.
Public comments, we're all sitting right here. Rob, was it on the agenda to go to executive section?
Nope. You're using the agenda.
Sir,
I'm sorry, what?
Let's hear you.
Well, I want to know from our two attorneys then, what their opinion is. Pardon? What?
You guys as attorneys, you
I would like to hear from these two attorneys, Rob Rins.
said an hour to hey.
That's right, you're right.
Yeah.
Rob,
Yeah, it wasn't on the agenda. It's not.
okay, then I would like to hear from you, your opinion on Mr. Peterson's, I'm sorry, position.
Okay. My understanding, what we're doing, this is all conditioned on them making sure they comply.
He can't wait to hear you.
Rob, will you go to the podium?
Don, regarding the references and what's occurring, is my understanding what we're looking at is it's conditioned on the successful completion of those certain requirements in our conditional use. So my understanding is what we're going to do is we're going to have that. If this passes before this board, then they're going to have to come back and show that they've complied with all the conditions that we're dealing with today.
That's not the law. Compliance first.
My concern is listening to Mr. Peterson. I believe he brought up some facts of the law that don't allow us to do that.
Don, my position is that we can proceed forward with those being conditions that they have to comply with.
No!
If that's what the board decides to do, Don. My position would be that they can do that.
That's my position.
Don, have you permitted the podium for a moment?
Was he signed up?
As to the issue of due process and the provision of additional information to this board, there's nothing under the law that says the information in your packet cannot be supplemented ahead of time with additional information that wasn't there ahead of time. There are laws that require certain information be published ahead of time that would be notice of this hearing so that the public knows what the agenda is and they have an opportunity to respond. But if the site plan is more thoroughly developed at the time of this meeting, it only makes sense that you guys be given the latest information that's available. So you guys do have in front of you an updated drawing overlaid over the satellite image showing the actual footprint of the barns in each application, as well as the truck turnarounds and the loadouts. And that information is to be considered at this particular meeting for purposes of due process. It's one of the pieces of evidence you may be presented at this hearing in order to pass due process muster. It is your job to sit in judgment. It is not the public's job to judge these applications. They have an opportunity to come in and share their opinions and their feelings and their belief and their evidence.
My concern is the degree of completeness of the application.
Right. I understand that was...
Quiet, please.
That was the issue that was raised, but I believe it's a red herring legal issue because if the building permit is conditioned upon those things being done, all those items that are in chapter, I believe 519, as cited by Mr. Peterson, will be addressed. They have to be addressed as part of the conditions that are imposed upon these facilities in Yankton County. It does not have to be done
Help
at the
me
time.
understand this
Sure.
then, and maybe it'll cut to the quick for me. Why then, and maybe give me examples when they've done it the way we're doing it versus done it the way Mr. Peterson has suggested.
Well,
they're doing it in the rest of the state.
I'll be honest with you, Commissioner Kettering, I do not know how they do it other places. I'm confident that what we're doing here is legal. There's nothing under the law that says we cannot do it this way. And quite frankly, the issues that are cited in our ordinance as the considerations you guys must make in your role as Board of Adjustment in approving a conditional use are part of the information that I was intending our engineer, Mr. Werner, to share with you, because we have addressed a lot of those issues as part of what you see in front of you. All of those items were not available at the last meeting other than in concept form. We now have it in writing in front of you to consider at this particular meeting.
The problem is, or help me understand this, the problem is your witness didn't sign up.
Well, I viewed it as, pardon my frustration. The issue that I had is that's part of the applicant presenting his application. We're entitled to bring in those who can help us address the issues we are not technically capable of addressing ourselves. He's not a witness on behalf of the public, yay or nay. He's our hired engineer to help us present this project on behalf of the applicant before the commission.
Audience,
He was the person who created the drawings you see in front of you.
please let us work through this without the comments from the audience.
Mr. Werner is the individual who created the drawing you see in front of you. He is the one best capable to explain it, which is why I tried to yield this time, but I got equivocated quite substantially by Commissioner Swenson.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Todd.
And that's not a dig.
We've allowed both sides to have representatives speak on their behalf. Legal, wouldn't an engineer fall underneath that representative per the rules that we have set forth? They're a hired representative that have been hired to explain what's going on. Is he not a representative for the applicants?
By my look, I'd answer no.
Rob, can I ask a legal question on that? And you might want to get to a mic so everybody can hear you.
I believe the answer is yes. I mean, obviously, we speak on behalf of the applicant, Warner again.
We're talking about procedures, Rob. We're talking about procedures. And they're challenging the fact that they didn't have all the information in front of them in the prescribed manner.
This was loaded in the packets.
I don't care when it was. He didn't sign up to present it.
And I don't think it's necessary at this point. But we have additional information if you care to hear it. That's all. That's my point. We have additional information if you care to hear it. We can address a number of those items that were going to be put off as part of the permitting process, which they would be very thoroughly covered as part of that process, but we also have some of that preliminarily available for you to consider today. It's a courtesy you may wish to enjoy. It's entirely your call.
I give you another.
Pat?
So I have to give the board another, you have a similar circumstance going on out there, and that is the telecommunication towers. Now, as we've gone through those telecommunication towers, they're very much the same way. When they have come in with their tower proposal, all we had was the site plan. We did not have the tower construction, we did not have all those things. But the building permit would not be issued until they brought the structural engineering plans and everything with it under our guidance with our engineers before we issued the building permit. But you did issue the condition saying, here's what you are going to do. And we have done multiple towers in Yankton County since, under that premises. We have said, here's what you're going to provide us. In our findings, we have said, here's what you will provide us, and it will be done prior to the building permit being issued. And each and every one of those towers has had a building permit issued after all that material was presented. So I just want you to see your other standard. This is very much the same standard set up in the context of being outside engineers have to develop the plan.
What's the hazard of one of those towers? How far is compared to towers?
We violate them
Quiet, please. Where are we at in the process?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I still believe that a representative for the applicants, whether it's an attorney or an engineer, can maybe answer some of these questions that have been posed today. I would say that we should allow the applicant, we allowed him 10 minutes, so I don't believe he used his 10 minutes.
You get 3 minutes left.
We want the lawyer's time back too.
Mr. Clemish, in these packets that we received with these diagrams, it's easy for me to see which way is north just by looking at road. Would this qualify as, they have locations circled on here, they have buildings on here. Does this qualify as formation of that Article 5 process?
Ray, I apologize. I have to look at the
Okay.
packet, so
Maybe if it was available before today.
Yes, it was.
You can't make a decision based on what you got.
Mr. Chairman, are we going to let the representative speak or not?
I don't have a problem with letting the representative speak, but I don't know what 3 minutes is going to do to the process. I like the clean water, knowing the factory farms, just.
Mr. Warner?
Go ahead.
3 minutes, is that?
I guess I would prefer to have a 30-second conversation with the attorney to confirm that I'm addressing. You can start the time.
Yeah, it's okay. I wasn't timing all the applause. It took a little bit.
Clock started, right?
I think the 30 seconds is up. Okay, come on back.
Okay. So the permitting process has already begun. They've started the paperwork. They're running down the road through all the steps they've got to go through here. In a matter of time, they will have substantially more information. They will have some of these plans.
Quiet, please.
Fleshed out. So if you guys want some more certainty, some opportunity to discuss with legal counsel when you're not on the spot here, we are amenable to tabling for a meeting if you like, so some of this stuff can be fleshed out.
In 2 weeks, can you have all the information that's needed?
I'm certain they couldn't have all of it done by the next meeting. I mean, keep in mind, it's also multiple thousands of dollars to put this stuff together, and with the uncertainty that this commission might not approve it.
That's the challenge that everybody.
That's the challenge. You're right.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
I think Mr. Garrity hit it on the nose here in the sense that we don't require the same of the towers, and it's a similar sort of permitting process, and it is a great investment.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
I think that the information you've been provided gives you enough detail for you to check the boxes that you have considered those items in the ordinance if you wish to proceed. I think that this is legally supportable. If I didn't, I would not have presented this on behalf of my clients.
Mr. Denhurter.
We would have provided more information.
In 519, in 519-1, it says animal feeding operations shall submit animal waste management systems, plans, and specifications for review and approval prior to construction.
Correct.
Is that not what we're doing?
The next
That is what we're doing,
outbreak,
'cause-
without somebody acknowledging the chair for permission to talk, I'll ask them to leave.
That is exactly what we're doing, is prior to construction. The building permit cannot be issued until that's done.
And point 2 says prior to construction, such facilities shall obtain a stormwater permit for construction. So, I mean, if we put those conditions on the conditional use permit, isn't that
That's how we comply. We're following the ordinance, the way it's written. This is one of the most challenging ordinances of its type in South Dakota to try to pass. I mean, this was a very landowner, homeowner-friendly, agricultural hostile ordinance, and we're complying with it. It's just hard because you can't make people happy. Nobody wants this by their house. I wouldn't either, but this is what we permit in an agricultural... This is what we permit in an agricultural district.
For me to clear the whole side of the room, so I'll forget this one. Please?
Please be respectful of everybody. We're trying to be respectful of all wishes.
The engineer says that a month we could get you a substantial amount of additional information.
Sir,
It still
you want
wouldn't...
to talk? Please come up.
Well, let's
Come up to the mic.
Can you finish his statement?
I just wanted to know how long you had.
Come up to the mic, please, and address the mic. Thank you.
He's not talking yet.
Yeah, go ahead and finish.
The engineer tells us that in a month we can get you a substantial amount of additional information. It wouldn't be everything that you're asking for, but it would be a lot.
Sir?
Wait your turn.
Oh, I thought you
You're in
told me to
line.
come
You're in
up.
line.
In a month, you'll have a substantial amount of additional information to consider. It still wouldn't be everything, but it would be a lot more because the process has already started.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
I literally was just asking how long
Please
he
state
had
your
to
name
talk.
and your name, please.
My name is Matt Seiler, and I was just wondering how long he had to talk because it seemed like he was getting more time than the rest, and we had to give out our time.
Time issues was presentation to the board. When we ask questions of other people, we don't put a time limit on that.
Oh, so we can just ask or go however long.
Yeah,
I don't know how it all works.
Go ahead and speak.
But anyway, okay, well, so then the next thing is I would assume that with what our lawyer said, that nobody here has enough information to make the decision that you're gonna try to make tonight. So, I mean, I guess that would be probably pretty irresponsible to give them a go-ahead on this until other stuff's here.
You know, there's one thing about it, it always takes two lawyers to figure something out. So there's differences in opinions.
Well, no, I understand that, but I mean, you even said yourself.
That's what we're trying to get at.
Yep, I get it. Well, that's what I'm saying. Even though there's a question, I would assume that you probably are smart enough to know it's probably not gonna work out.
Don't assume I'm smart. Okay.
May I have 2 minutes to respond to some?
Yes, you may.
I appreciate it. Try to be as efficient as I can. You know, if all the information, if it's okay for it to all come in now without any chance to hear, like, what's the planning commission hearing about? Or they're supposed to make a recommendation to you. I mean, the ordinances say you have to have a recommendation from them. Either yes or no, but you need to have a recommendation because they're the ones who are supposed to do the initial study for you. They've not studied this plan because it just arrived today. I mean, it wasn't at the auditor's office at 2:30 when I went to ask for it. So what's the point of the planning commission hearing? It's got to mean something. Additionally, you know, your choices today are, well, I mean, you could table it, but I mean, it's yes or no. That you're either going to grant them a conditional use permit or you're not. You can't give them a maybe. You can't say, yeah, it's looking pretty good, fellas. It's a tentative yes. Let's come back in a month or two when we have your engineering plan. And when you're looking at a building permit, it's too late then. You can't then get back into whether It's just then, does the building meet whatever building requirements there are? It's too late then to go back and look at whether they comply with conditional uses, whether you look at things like in 51910, like prevailing wind direction. It's too late tomorrow to look at that. Tonight is your only opportunity. And I notice Commissioner, I'm going to kill your name. Can I call you Deborah, just not out of lack of formality, but when you're looking at the 519 and reading, doesn't it say prior to construction in 519.1 and 519.2 prior to construction? Yes, those do, but you got to turn the page. You got to turn the page to 519.10 that talks about the things that are supposed to be in front of you. And 519.1 is not applicable to Class E's anyway. It's only Class A through Class D. So, I mean, they're timed to comply with whatever the conditional use requirements are. Setbacks, do they have a common ownership such that you really need to look at these as a Class D or a Class C or B? You've got to have that information now to even know what rules you're supposed to be applying, and they just haven't given you the information.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for our state's attorney. Our options to table, yes, no, we have an option to send it back to planning and zoning.
Further discussion? I'd entertain the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the Carl Schenk #1 variance.
Wow.
We have a motion, do we have
Conditional
a
use
second?
variance.
Man of God.
Hearing no second, motion dies.
Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make another a motion. I make a motion, we send these back, this one back to planning and zoning to provide the information needed in the conditional use permit.
Everybody hear the motion?
The information needed for the conditional use permit, i.e. the site plan, manure management. Information will come out of the state permitting process.
You want the state permitting process to be done before it's approved by planning and zoning.
Let me clarify my motion. Pat or Rob, before I amend my motion, what are we going to, per our zoning rules, can you give guidance on the steps for my motion to amend?
What?
So I want to, the points Mr. Peterson brought up.
Yep.
Odor footprint study, which I believe was put in the packet today, which I seen in my packet.
Yep.
You know, we talked about manure management, we talked about nutrient management, geological testing. Can you give me the specific requirements so I can put that in my motion?
From my findings here, we have enough evidence we have what it takes to do the conditions on the conditional use permit to offer it from 519, section 519 and article 5 for a K-full unit for 2,400 units, for 2,400 animals. If you want, if you're going back to saying the applicant has to come back with more information that would be required by the time I issue the building permit anyway, then we have to have all the answers underneath section 519 available to the Board of Adjustment.
And that includes, read them off, please.
That includes that the facility will receive and maintain a general permit by the South Dakota Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, South Dakota Water Pollution Control Act, and the Administrative Rules of South Dakota, Chapter 745201 through 745211. the South Dakota Department of Environmental and Natural Resources directs the animal confinements to have no discharge. The Planning Commission recommended temporary relief for this, but we also will have to have a general permit in which we will have the water pollution control plan, prevention plan. We will also have the animal confinement and waste facilities. The map will have to show us where the public wells are, which we've already identified, but we'll identify them greater. We've already looked. We've had conflicting reports. There are no CAFOs under these requirements, under these applications that are in the floodplain. They are not in the floodplain. Am I clear? Yes. They're not in the floodplain. I'm the floodplain administrator, and they're not in the floodplain. So they are not in there. We do also have to come up with the manure management or nutrient management plan. That means it has to have the maps. That's not going to be done in a month. Now, I don't really care, but that's not going to be done in a month. We're not going to have all those maps done in a month. But that's the other piece. The nutrient management plan has to have all those maps done, along with the soil samples on those farms. The other thing that we have to have here is that land process and methods. How are we going to apply it? And then what fields do we apply it, and what are the buffers on all those fields? Which is something that we were going to ask for when we came into the thing, before we give the building permit. We also then have to have the legal description and maps, which include the documented proof of the area that will receive the nutrient applications. We also have to have an operator must follow the water pollution and protect the public health. We also have to have all the sites appropriately away from any outstanding wells in the area. The operation has to show us how, unless this is where Mr. Peterson comes in under number 10. Animal feeding operations shall prepare a facility management plan. The plan shall be designed to dispose of dead animals, manure, and wastewater in such a manner as to control flies and odor. The County Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment will review the need for control measures on a site-specific basis, taking into consideration prevailing wind direction and topography. The following procedures to control flies and odors shall be applied in the management plan, management control plan. They have to, in their management control plan, show me the manure collection, treatment, and use shall be done. They have to show the methods to dispose the animals and where will the animals be disposed at and what will be the process on animal disposure. They have to show us the screening. They have to show us the stormwater project and how will that be adequately set up. They have to show us the solid manure management plan. Where is that solid manure going to be stored? Where is it going to be stored? What's the description of how we're going to remove the manure from open pens to minimize odor problems? Well, these are pits. Then they have to show me the industry best management practices that must be covered. Then it goes in the next thing in which we have to have a notification program to the neighbors so that everyone within a half a mile of the application fields is notified when we apply the manure. And that will be a notification program that will be in this best management plan. The next one will be is what are the conditions? Do we apply? We don't apply when it's frozen, but we also don't apply when it's the 4th of July. We also don't apply at certain other times because it's not conducive to proper land use. There will be a section in there for preferred times and conditions for application. And then any manure that's being spread will have to be appropriately distanced from any of the wells that are within the findings here. Any manure that is generated, whether it's being applied or it's being generated, has to be a certain distance away from the wells. We are not going to use irrigation to spread the manure with these operations. So there's being no request to do that. So there will be no findings, nor will there be a plan for irrigation manure spreading. What we're going to ask for here, and what Mr. Peterson's pointing at, is saying that, are we being too gracious in saying that, are we approving a plan that could never live up to the expectations? It is so well defined here as to what that plan is that there is no deviating. If they don't come in with that plan, they don't get a building permit. It's not a separate deal. The conditions are attached to the building permit. The conditions are attached to the building. If I end up with an operator that does what Mr. Peterson pointed out and becomes a cooperative operator in which now we have 3 owners that are actually behaving together and we don't have 2,400 pigs, but we got in another classification, they're violating the conditional use. It's a violation of the conditional use. We bring it back here, we pull the plug. We say, wait a minute, this isn't what we're doing. We're violating the conditional use permit. This conditional use permit is for one pig barn at 2,400 under one operation. If it's not, it's violating the conditional use permit. Now, let's table this. Let's go back and table this. We're just going to make them come back and do all of this.
There's
and
nothing
then
that
what?
we're going to ask them to do that they don't have to do anyway.
Everything that we're going to have them do, we're going to
When-
require.
When we ask them to
Yes.
have it done, and then the process of letting the public understand what the manure plan is and what the things that you read off are.
What is the responsibility? What is the responsibility? Put in the condition, we can do it two ways. You can do it the way that Mr. Peterson has said many counties do. There is all clear cut. Everybody knew exactly what everybody said, hey, they didn't all agree, but there it all was out in the front. It all was, laid all out there. Or we can come in and say, we're going to build this as we move through this thing, but here's what you're going to do before we give you a building permit. Now, if there's violations, then that will be dealt with under that realm. But that's, if there's violations, I think we wrote 89 pages of minutes for this thing. We were quite clear as to what we expect from our applicant. There isn't any wiggle room here. We're not being naive and saying that they're going to build something. They're not going to come in and not build that structure, nor give us all the things that needs to go with it, or it won't get built. Now, we can hold it off and go, but we're not going to get that nutrient plan for 6 weeks. Now, that's fine, whatever, but that's how long that's going to take.
You recommending we table it?
No.
Did you say 6 weeks?
I think it'll be a minimum of 6 weeks before we'll see a nutrient management plan. That's a big project and a lot of dollars, but that's beside the point. The fact is, we're still going to make this happen
But
one
they
way or
got to
the other.
spend those dollars anyway.
I know.
Pat,
That's beside the point.
is nutrient management different than what number 10 says in regards to the plan, the facility management plan? The plan shall design the disposal of dead animals, manure, and wastewater in such a manner to control odors and flies.
And those would be under the management plan. And then the nutrient down there just a little bit further, which then we have to identify the fields, test the soil, assure that the fields are being properly applied, that they're knifed in and not surface or irrigated applied. But that's all detailed in detail in the nutrient management plan.
Questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to ask each board member to...
Don, I was going to amend my motion.
Oh, sorry. Thanks.
My motion is to send this back to the Planning and Zoning Board to have a facility management plan presented to the Planning and Zoning Board, as defined by point 10 in our zoning ordinance under section 519.
Okay, here's a second.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Is there, I'd like to suggest, I heard a month and I heard 6 weeks. How about if we give them 2 months to come up with all the information? That'll give them ample time to think about it, to get everything, because I know how, you get holidays, you get family things. We give them 2 months to get all their ducks in a row.
They can take the time as it needs, as I see. They get it done in a month, they can bring it back in a month if it's done in 6 weeks. I want to err on the side of caution with this, is what I'm doing. I see all the hard work and what the applicants have done. They're going above and beyond the minimum requirements. They've hired a third party, which they didn't have to do. They have a Class C facility. It's below state requirements and a state permit. They've done above and beyond. But I'm going to err on the side of caution to delay it, is the reason I made this motion. I've not made up my mind. I just want to make sure we err on the side of caution. Just-
Can I speak?
No.
No. Public comments done.
Chairman, may I speak to the board?
Public comments done.
We're going to finish this.
You know, I'm, we have a policy and procedure. We've heard it stated that it's been met. We've heard it stated that there's no problem with the opposition's opposition. A little bit frustrated right now.
Well, here's the deal, the way I'd look at that. And I don't know that if this can be done in the timeframes that we're talking about, but we're asking them to go back and do things that they have to do in order to get this thing approved anyway. So we're not asking the applicants of anything extra, other than they got the risk of whether we can approve it at the end of the time.
I feel
Okay, so let me finish, Ray. If in fact we move with the motion and Mr. Peterson elects to file a lawsuit, it'll be 2 years before this thing is decided, and I suspect that anybody's interest in whether this is done or not will, at least going forward, it will be gone. So I see that as disastrous if the process is to move forward. And so do the stuff, get it out in the open, let everybody see it. My guess is it'll still be just exactly as it's proposed. They'll get their sites, but I don't know that. But at least everybody can say they looked at all the data. And that's the way I'm looking at it. I want you to have those answers before it goes to, we got to vote. When we vote, then any other discussion? We have a motion on the table. Don't think it's been amended. All in favor say aye.
Don, wait, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Roll call.
Gary,
On the table.
Yeah, we want to table the thing.
Or the motion is to go back to planning and zoning.
To go back to planning and zoning, that's what it is. I'm sorry, I can't, this thing isn't working.
It's not in your ear.
I'm sorry, what?
It's not in your ear.
Well, just the other part is. Anyway.
Gary,
Yeah, I think it should go back to planning and zoning.
yeah,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Ray,
No.
Don,
Yes.
4 to 5.
Well, that's the first one. We got 6 more.
Mr.
Now, I promised that gentleman that he could speak.
But you have to come back.
Come up to the mic.
My name's John Reeby. I live at 30626 446 Avenue, Mission Hill, South Dakota. Well, first thing is, I don't know how you just moved on with that at all. We were here for a reason. They were to have all sorts of different plans in place, a site plan for one, and it was stated by Mr. Tom Woods that, you know, we're looking at a Class C facility when you don't even know if it's a Class C facility because, well, you haven't seen the site plan, so you don't know where that manure is going to be spread. You don't know how close these buildings are gonna be. So I don't know why you would move forward with any of these, why you would table it, or why you would send it back to the Planning and Zoning Committee. There shouldn't be a case at all. That should have been a no. And Mr. Garrity standing up here as well, I want to point out, there should have been no more talk from him at all. He gets up here and that was a lot of we statements. We are going to have a plan. We are going to do this. We are going to do that. That's not how it's supposed to be. That is bias. He needs to be recused from this whole situation, as should some of you. Don Kettering, Tom Woods.
My name is Todd.
Todd Woods, Don Kettering. I think you know what you need to do, and you're refusing to do it.
So my question to you is, why should we recuse ourselves?
I don't know. Why don't you look into, your ordinances and see what a conflict of interest is, and see how you would benefit from, maybe anything that has to do with these buildings. You think about that. I don't need to answer your question.
Well, I would like you to answer that question.
Let's let it go. Let's let it go.
If you read through your notes.
I have read through my notes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
But you have to go to the podium.
You have to get this under control.
My name is Lisa Utek, and I live at 928 Bukowski Drive in Mission Hill. Aren't you two on the planning commission? And so you approved this from the get-go, and now you're sending it back to yourselves?
Yeah. Dan? Then we're going to go on to the next one.
Hello, my name is Dan Klemish, Yankton County resident. I'm also a member of the Zoning and Planning Board. I guess I don't understand why we're going to send this back to the Zoning and Planning Board. I brought up many of these issues at the June 13th meeting, and it was just smoothed over. I mean, it was a 7-hour ordeal. But as a member of the Zoning and Planning Board, I don't think that they can take an objective look at this again. I just think, many of the, two of you guys are already on the Zoning and Planning Board. How are we going to get a different result than what we already had? I mean, all these issues were already brought up, and we were told it wasn't an issue and that we didn't need to do this. So I guess I don't understand what going back to the Zoning and Planning Board is going to do for these applications.
Is that all?
Thank you.
Sounds like everybody wants a yes vote today. Okay. Rob, do we need to take each of the next 6 separately? Application?
Can I have a question?
Yep.
Can we make one motion to cover all 7? If we wanted to do the same for each one? Or do we have to take each one individually?
Makes sense? Do I have a motion to move all 7 applications back to the planning and zoning?
It'd be the 6, we already got one.
6, yeah. Back to the planning and zoning committee.
I'll make that motion to send the other 6 applications back to planning and zoning underneath the same requirements as our first motion.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Pam,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Ray,
No.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
You do not want it sent back? You don't want it sent back to planning and
That's what he
zoning?
voted.
it's already voted.
3 to 2?
3 to 2.
3 to 2. It's in.
That's it.
Okay, we've got,
You need to go out of Board of Adjustments.
I want to, I have 4 hands up in the air. And that's, we're going to take those 4 hands. Ma'am, start with you. Yeah, you. Yeah.
Please, but you have to come to the podium, though.
Up the podium. What I'd like to see is something new that hasn't been discussed before. If it's been on the discussion before.
My name is Marty Rose Washington. I live at 4473 River Rat Road, Gayville, South Dakota, 57031. I took the day off of work today so I could be here today, sir, ma'am. We all came here so our voices could be heard on decisions you already made. So I don't understand why we would send it back again to a board that comprises of you. It doesn't make any sense. Should I read what I have? No, I'm not on this barn, but that doesn't make any sense. Can you explain to me how that makes sense?
Ma'am, there was some of the questions that were asked wanted more information. More information from the applicant.
More information that should have been provided before today.
And we don't.
Okay, ma'am, we got your point. Next person. Sir.
Bring it down to my level. My name is Daniel Grant, 30626 446th Avenue, Mission Hill. I only know one member on the board. I knew him from when I was younger. I will applaud Don into doing what you've done tonight. You've completely changed my look of you for now. I appreciate you taking the right actions. I do have a question though. You're going to table the other 6, which have actually variances that are asked for compared to the first barn. So if those 6 are different than the first barn, why are you just automatically sending all of them back without having some conversation on these barns?
Next. Ma'am.
My name's Andrea Whitmire. I live at 30674 447th Avenue in Mission Hill. I'm just kind of wondering how, I just wanted to, I wrote up a paper to be presented to you guys today. Can I, ask it to be on public record? Because a lot of people did this.
You can state it if it's something new. If it's the same things that we've all talked about today, I would just appreciate that you hand it in and make it public record.
Okay.
Ms. Whitmire,
Yes.
it's part of public record.
We've
If
got
you would
it.
like, you can take my copy and read it.
No,
I mean, it's part of public record.
it's in our pocket. No. No.
It's part of public record and it's available on the internet, on our website, this packet is, with all the count. So, that's up to,
It's up to you to read it if you want. If it's the same things we've been talking about, I'm going to ask you to sit down. But if it's new,
Some of it you guys have heard before, so I'll skip that part, but it's
Okay.
mainly about quality of life issues.
Okay.
I did a little research on the hog confinement that was proposed by the North Hill Farms in 2006. I found an article written by the Press and Dakotan stating the North Hill Farms building permit for 2 buildings that would house a 2,000 hog piglet production operation does not meet the requirements of Yankton County zoning ordinance. The Yankton County Commission, acting as the Board of Adjustment, voted 4-1 to deny the permit. A previous commissioner said the permit was rejected contrary to the best interest of the County of Yankton due to the anticipated negative environmental impacts of the general public safety and welfare based on the significant population density in the proposed area. With these hog confinements being proposed as a natural curtain barn and a natural air vent, the transmission of disease from hog to person is high and creates a negative environmental impact impact to the general public safety. That's all I wanted to say. I'll submit my testimony for the record. Thank you.
that's brand new. We haven't heard that. Was there one more? One more?
The gentleman in the back by the door in the blue shirt had his hand up the entire time.
Good evening. My name is Trevor Gaden. I live at 117 Lookout Trail, Mission Hill, South Dakota.
I am directly south of one of the proposed facilities, basically surrounding all the proposed facilities. One of the statements that was made tonight by the engineer was we're going to be doing drill samples to test for soil quality and moisture. Well, if you're proposing that they come back in 60 days or 2 months or whatever you want to call it, I don't know about anybody here, but I think we're kind of in a drought. So I know traveling my gravel road to my house every single day in the spring, I have water in my ditch 2 feet below the ground. The ditch is 2 feet lower than the ground level, and there's water in it all spring. Now, there's no water, but there's cattails. How can you tell me that taking a soil sample in the next month or two is going to tell you what kind of moisture is going to be underneath these hog facilities? It's the wrong time of the year to test for this kind of application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, make a recommendation to go out of the Board of Adjustment.
Have a motion to go out of Board of Adjustment. Pardon?
I thought we get an hour to speak on each farm.
We've tabled,
No,
we've
we-
tabled all the,
we
we've
tabled
tabled them all.
Yeah.
No real reason. How convenient.
Well, I second that motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I delayed about a 3-minute presentation on variance law, not specific to these barns, but I think it may be helpful. We're certainly going to be talking about it when we're here next.
I'd like to hear it.
We've got a motion and a second.
We don't have a second.
We have a motion and a second to go out, so
I didn't hear Ray's second.
just,
I did second that.
I'm sorry.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Carried. Motion,
Yeah.
motion carries.
I'll agree with it.
Now we're out of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to share a little thoughts on variances, and they're a unique beast in zoning law. You look at your definition of variance, it's in your opening definitions, and then you look specifically at 1907-10 that also talks about how variances can be used. And they're both consistent, and it's consistent with every other county I've ever seen. Is a variance may be used to relax rules, setbacks, other requirements that would otherwise stop a permitted use from going forward. Not a conditional use. And that there's a very important distinction. In your ag zoning law, it lays out what are permitted uses, things that I as a landlord don't have to come and get your permission to do. Build a house. I need a building permit, but I don't need special permission to then live in it. Agriculture is also a permitted use, which I would submit this isn't agriculture. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here for a conditional use permit. It's industry. But regardless, there's a list of permitted uses, conditional uses, and prohibited uses. You know, nuclear waste dump, you can't have it anywhere, no matter what rules you want. Variances, according to your ordinances, are only applicable to things that are on the permitted use list that otherwise you can't do because you got a weird shaped lot, maybe you've got some water that's coming. I mean, just there's some oddity about the land that creates a hardship where the landowner cannot do a permitted use, something on the permitted use list. But variances cannot be used to relax setbacks or ignore rules applicable to conditional uses. And Section 105 is very specific to that, and Article 5 in several places.
Mr. Pierce, I have a question. How is livestock not part of agriculture?
Livestock is. Industrial, you know, it's your ordinances. And they say permitted use is agriculture. So if what they are is agriculture, they don't need a conditional use permit. It's just a permitted use. What it is industry that involves livestock. It's not family farms. It's industry. It's big ag, if you want to call it agriculture of any type. It's
These are
industrial.
local farmers. These are local farmers.
But it's still an industrial operation.
Well, thank you. That's all I have.
But yeah, I mean, it's in your definitions, and even our state statutes don't call CAFOs agriculture. There's something else. But my point is, a variance can be used to relax rules for things on the permitted list. You cannot use it on conditional uses. Whatever the rules are, they are. It's the same 2/3 vote. I'm litigating in Brookings County right now.
You don't have settled case law.
I believe there is case law on it. I don't have it with me, Ross, but
You said you're litigating it right now.
in Brookings County, yes.
You don't have any established law.
I've got a research memo that will be turned into a brief that cites those cases and the case law.
Would you be willing to share that with me?
My internal memo that my clients paid me for, no. But I'd share my brief with you when it's done. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it can't be used for to expand conditional uses. It's the same 2/3 vote for variance as it is to conditional use permit. And just think about that for a moment. If you can 2/3 vote your way around anything you want, then why the hell do you even have ordinances? I mean, why do you even have these rules that are specific, shall, meet requirements?
The only thing I'll say about that is I think you want to remember, and I'm not a lawyer, probably wrong on this, but these guys are following the rules that were set up in 2003. They're following the rules.
I don't think that they are. I mean, I think under 519.10, that's a now requirement.
Yeah.
519.1 and 2 before construction.
They're in zoned ag areas. They're doing things that apparently the people that made planning and zoning way back in 2003 planned on them doing, because they set it up so they could do it.
Only on a conditional basis.
507 says that animal feeder operations are suitable conditional uses.
But a concentrated animal feeding operation, as you look at in your conditional use permits, why do they need a conditional use permit if it's a permitted use?
I understand that.
So I don't think it's
All I'm saying is they have some rights too. There is some law out there that.
And I do, and their rights are, you should make them follow the rules that this community adopted, and don't make special rules for them.
I honestly don't think we've made any special rules.
In particular, I think what demonstrates my point under 519.8, it says specifically the Board of Adjustment may use a variance to decrease setbacks that are otherwise applicable for the owner's own residence. So if the CAFO operator has a house too close, the CAFO operator can say, I want a variance from it. It's my house, it's my operation. What do you care if I live close to it? And 519.8 says you can give them a variance for that. It's very specific that says that. That is not in any of the other requirements. And it's because that exception proves the rule that I just told you. You can't use variances to get around conditional uses. I think under 519.5 as well, 519.5 is the 660-foot property line setback that is the subject of 6 of the 7 variance applications. And it says under 519.5, the Board of Adjustment may mandate setbacks greater than those required. That's the rules. You can't make them smaller.
I think one of the issues that will have to be addressed is, as I recall, on 2 or maybe 3 of the various, as I recall, on maybe 2 or possibly 3 of the variance requests, the applicants were actually trying to create a bigger buffer zone than they would have to by moving it.
My recollection, it was...
My only point is, so maybe everybody isn't going to, if they go back and say, well, I'll take the variance away and we'll go at it as it is, maybe everybody won't fare as well. They were trying to do it. Now, if they don't want to do it, coming up, that's their call.
And several were for the right-of-way to the road. I mean, it wasn't to a property owners, it was to the road.
Right, and my only point is that's the political decision made in 2003 and then changed somewhat in 2008. Those are the rules. And if those rules aren't compatible with the kind of development this board wants, you've got to change your rules. You can't just make up new rules on the fly.
That's why they have variances.
But I don't think so. I don't think variances can be used for conditional uses, and I think your ordinances are clear with CAFOs. There's only one instance where you can decrease the setback with a variance, and that's for the owner's own dwelling. And the fact that it spells it out proves what I'm saying is right.
I disagree with that interpretation.
Okay.
Because you do a lot of zoning law, Ross.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I got one more thing, Don.
Okay.
Now that this has been tabled, and it's going to be, what, 6 weeks, 2 months off, I believe we need to change a venue, because this is not...
Yes. What?
We've got a motion to adjourn. A second.
I guess, yeah, I'm gonna let you say something.
I didn't make a motion, because...
No, I did. I said entertain a motion. Nobody made it.
Yes, I said.
I didn't
Thank
hear
you.
it.
I appreciate it. Isn't it clear that nobody wants this?
No, it's not. No.
I would disagree with that, Pat.
Just the people that benefit from it.
Well,
Isn't that how most things go?
my last round of calls, I had 3 that spoke against, 1 that spoke for. So there's at least one person out there that speaks for it. I've had dozens upon dozens of people that have talked to me and said they support agriculture in the county.
I would like to make one comment, Don. I've had multiple calls for this for these permits. I've had calls and emails against this permit, but it's been more than 4. I've had many calls in support of this. So there's let me finish, please. Just because they didn't come up and speak doesn't mean there's not support for this. You have.
Yeah, the PMD did it too. Yeah, now that we're going back to planning, PMD did it.
So.
Seems like there is a lot against it, isn't there? You don't know, we don't know, let's all know together. Right.
Oh, okay,
I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
let me close with one thought. There's 3 guys sitting here that are acting on county ordinance, and you know, if I were them 3, I'd be considering whether I would be suing the county. Because they're acting on county ordinance that's in effect. And because some one of you doesn't like a little bit of smell. Come up here and say that.
Is my help. It's not to do with.
I said some of you. I said some of you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
There's a motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.